Hello, welcome to Savvy. We have reached the 11th film in the James Bond Retrospective series with the 1979 film Moonraker, directed for the final time, actually, by Lewis Gilbert. The end credits of Spy Who Loved Me would have you believe that we were talking about For Your Eyes Only tonight. We're not. They delayed it because a little film called Star Wars came out in 1977, hence the existence of Moonraker. So they squeezed one extra James Bond film in there, and we're talking about the silly space one today, which is going to be great. It's going to be a really fun discussion. I think we've had a little bit of a chat before, we've recorded today. I think we're all relatively on the same page with this one. We have our plan as usual, and as always, is going to be a completely spoiler-filled discussion, roundtable discussion. We hit all the areas: Bond himself, the villains, the music, and all this silliness in between, which is part and parcel with the Roger Moore James Bond films. And as you can see, we're joined with two brand new faces today, making their debut on the channel. We're joined with Tom Pickup and John Kell. It was licensed to Kell. We couldn't bring up the names, but I really wanted to. It was a great pun. It was a great pun from Really 007 podcast. Thank you so much to you guys for jumping on today. I think this is going to be a really fun one.
Good evening. I'm so excited. I just love talking about Bond, and we haven't actually talked about Moonraker yet as a podcast. So me and John especially are going to be, we're loving it.
You did talk about a very silly one though, with Diamonds Are Forever though, right? In like 6 parts, I think, or something, which was immense.
Yeah, I don't think you wanted to talk about it for that long after
I don't
bringing every spin you out of it. Yeah.
Some Bond films drain you, and I'm delighted to say that Moonraker isn't one of them for me. But really quickly, everyone at home, actually let us know your thoughts. Moonraker, I want to say it's divisive. I don't really know if it is as divisive as people make out, but comment your thoughts. Obviously, this is being pre-recorded. We'll have this premiered. We'll be in a live chat. We'll reply to comments that come after as well. So want to thank everyone again for watching a lot of our more recent videos. We've had a big push with the Bond series. We're loving it. It's been so much fun, and I think the Roger Moore era epitomates that. There's honestly very few Bonds that can compare to how silly things can get, which we'll probably bring up. But as usual, hit that like button, do subscribe. There's plenty more on there. We're almost halfway through, which is kind of really sad actually, because I don't want it to stop. But unfortunately, there is a new film coming out. We are going to get there eventually. I don't think it might not be as funny as this, but who knows? Maybe they will go to space after all. But as always, the social medias. If Craig does it, anyone can do it. I'm just going to leave it there. And then Mission Impossible will do it, and it'll be this humongous war. But as usual, get us on the social medias down below: Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. We've got a link to the TeePublic store, and as well, you want to follow these guys on some of the social medias. Obviously, there are streaming services. We'll hand over at the end of the video, but the Facebook and Twitter is down below. Really 007 on Facebook and at Really 007 Pod on Twitter. So follow them. There is some really good stuff on there, and of course, we've got links in the description for where you can watch the podcast too. But as we always say, we're here to talk about Moonraker today. What we've been doing on this show, we're putting all the new guests on the spot. So we have this sort of introductory question, which we've got this mini ranking at home, and I feel really bad because I should have it on the screen. I'm actually going to bring it up on the screen in a couple of seconds, but we are asking everybody to let us know who your favorite James Bond is. And at the time of now, this is going to pop up on the screen. Look at that perfection. We have a three-way tie. We've had 6 people on so far, and it's currently Connery on 2, Brosnan on 2, and Roger Moore on 2. So, John, I'm going to come to you first. Who is your favourite Bond? Not necessarily the best. Who's your favourite Bond, and why, if you can?
Oh, my word. This is a very difficult question. It's like asking you to pick your favourite child. But if I go with my instinct, I absolutely adore Connery, Moore, and Brosnan, but my favourite is Timothy Dalton.
Dalton's on the board. Awesome.
We've got him on the board.
Yes.
That's 4 out of 6. No, that's good.
That was not a sympathy vote. What is it about Dalton I love? I think that he is the most rounded of all the performances. I think he's well ahead of his time. He's so emotional. He's so raw. He's so in it. He's the one who comes across as a spy to me. And I do think that the idea of him only doing 2 films and leaving us wanting more probably enhances my love for him. I absolutely adore Connery, but I do think you can see he's getting tired by You Only Live Twice. I think Roger Moore's performance in View to a Kill is a great performance, but it looks like he's aging a bit in it. And Paul Brosnan had Die Another Day, which he did not perform badly, but you can tell by some of the stuff he was asked to do, he was cringing internally. Whereas Dalton does too, and he just 100% on both of them, and it leaves you wanting more. So for me, Timmy D, favorite Bond. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, mate. I feel like I want to, as a perfectionist, make it 2-2-2-2 now. Just to be, I totally agree with John. I think the big four are way ahead. Obviously, George Lazenby only did one, and it was brilliant, but I don't think he's quite on the same level as those four. And our thoughts on Daniel Craig are, just check the podcast out. I think it's partly that's more the direction the films have taken. So, purely as a Bond actor you want to see, I think those four are way ahead. But if you're talking favourite, one who, I just want to put a James Bond film on, I think it would have to be Roger Moore. I think.
Oh,
yeah, I think it would
quality.
Have to. Yeah.
Well, at least Dalton's on the board. I'm happy about that. My one goal by the end of this retrospective, I want every single Bond on there in some way, shape, or form. I don't know who's going to draw the short straw and pick Lazenby. I'm hoping someone does by the end of this thing, because it will be a real shame if he's like the odd one out. But he is kind of that Bond, isn't he? He always is the odd one out, really.
John, do you want to change your vote?
Take with Timmy. If someone else voted Dalton, I'd push for George, but I'll stick with Dalton for the time being.
Nice.
I'm happy we've got him on. We've now got the Scottish Bond, the Welsh Bond, the Irish Bond, the English Bond. We're almost there. That's what's amazing. I love how, and it's always like, not being horrible, so it's always like, oh, the Australian one. That's how some people refer him. I was like, I don't think James Bond was racist in the 60s. Maybe as it got a bit newer, it did. But obviously nowadays, we're definitely going to get a British Bond, I think, next time round, because I think there would be rioting, and I'm going to own up, I would be one of them too. That being said, as we always do, we normally kickstart these with the talking about the credit scene. However, this time we're going to actually talk about some of the productions of Chris. You mentioned the sci-fi boom. I'm going to hand it back to you, because we know Star Wars came out. And for those that have never seen Star Wars, that are these dedicated James Bond fans, this obviously alters everything about not just this film, but I'd argue Moonraker is the biggest film that was altered due to Bond, if that makes any form of sense at all.
Yeah, we know that the Bond films have always been reactionary in some way, whether it's, real world politics or bringing elements that are happening, geopolitically at the time into the films in some way, shape or form. This is the one where they've been reactionary on films at the time. I guess you could kind of say Live and Let Die did that as well with, the blaxploitation era of films. They very much brought that into Bond. But this one was like, that movie made a hell of a lot of money. Let's just do that with Bond. And that's where we have this film. So it's interesting, especially looking at this in a modern lens where, Star Wars, the name that it is today, slap it on a t-shirt, on a lunchbox. Star Wars is everywhere. Disney have made damn sure of that. Even before that with the prequels, it's always been like a heavily branded thing. But it's so interesting hearing about the impact that Star Wars had, even back in as soon as the film came out, 77 was Star Wars. This came out 79. The fact that, they were clever financially, they realized that, hang on, this is a moneymaker here. Everyone's probably going to be jumping on the whole sci-fi craze. And of course they did around that point. And it was a bold decision, and it was a decision that paid off. I think this was the most financially lucrative Bond film, at least until GoldenEye in 1995. So, they did something right with it, and audiences were there to lap it up. It is so interesting, though, that Lewis Gilbert was the one who still directed this film. So he's done 3 Bond films. He did You Only Live Twice, which is a film that has its problems, but I still very much enjoy that film. Spy Who Loved Me, which we covered last week, which I thought I had a blast going back to that film. That's probably going to be my favorite Roger Moore film by the time that all of these are done. This does not feel like it's the same director as The Spy Who Loved Me in any way, shape, or form. This almost kind of feels like a Guy Hamilton one. I'd say with the direction of Gilbert and his know-how and the grandiose scale that he's showcased in the previous 2 Bond films is done. but with the very campy, silly humor of a Guy Hamilton Bond film. That's the only way I can describe it. It's such a surreal blend, and it's completely night and day from the one that Gilbert made previously with Spy Who Loved Me.
I think it's a very interesting starting point because so much of it is down to that sci-fi element. And we kind of said before we started recording that this is the space Bond film, but it's not actually in space for that long. What, 30 minutes? And yeah, and the opening scene of You Only Live Twice is probably only 3 minutes, but that's still technically in space. But it's one of them where I think it's genuinely, its reputation has essenced it into the film it has gone on to become. Because I don't think it's as ridiculous as everybody says, although it does get silly. And I don't think it's as bad as some people will say. And I don't think it's as great as some people will say. Moonraker is incredible. And I think that stands by within itself. But coming off the back of Spy Love Me as well, how many, I'm trying to count the 24 minutes. How many, like, I don't want to say worldy, like, how many class Bond films do you get back to back? When I say class, there are many great Bond films, but the top elite bracket, this is in its own league of everything else. I don't know if there's ever been 2 in a row. That's me personally. I'm sure people will agree on some. I mean, if you're 89 to 95 is probably the biggest 2 in terms of back to back. But it's.
I'd say 80. Sorry,
81 to 95.
81.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
79.
We are. I'm going to be that. I wouldn't stop on 95 up to Die Another Day. That's when you reach this. It's like the latter half of the whole Bond until the reboot era, I guess we could say. But it's, I don't know, the space of, I don't know why it worked, but it makes sense. And I think we'll get to it. But the concept of James Bond in space, to me, is not something that's as ridiculous as it seems. And I don't know if it's a gradual journey. I'm going to bring in something as contextually recent as we can. In the trailer for Fast 9, they hint at going to space. We are 9 films into Fast and Furious. That is not off the table, considering what's been done in the previous films. And I think Bond is there. We've had an underwater lair. You know, we've had submarines. We've had all of that. Why not go above the ground and into orbit? And it makes sense. I don't know. The space of a Bond, it's never griped me that he went to space in this. And we know it's reactionary to Star Wars, but everyone wanted sci-fi in the late 70s. Star Wars started a boom, and it wasn't like just producers wanting to do it. It was working for everyone. So why not? If James Bond was ever going to go to space, straight after Star Wars was the time to go.
I completely agree. I mean, this was the first Bond film that I fully saw. So I saw Live and Let Die with some friends at a retreat. I saw bits of it. I was hooked. And then it was when the ITV was playing them on Wednesday nights. And this was the first one I saw start to finish. And at 11-year-old, this was the perfect film to be the first one to watch all the way through. And I do think that I really feel that, especially with the jokes that come in and a lot of that idea, because Star Wars appealed to so many children as well as adults in that time, Moonraker deliberately takes that approach with its jokes and its comedy feel sometimes, and certainly the grandiose of space. It feels completely in keeping. It's a mission where it started with him, a space shuttle stolen, and he goes to find out why it's been stolen. And at the end of the day, he's a spy who's got to save the world. And if somebody's going out to space, he's got to go out to space to stop him. It has never bothered me one bit. I would never change it for the world. It is glorious.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, no one really mentions, do you think Superman was possibly an influence as well? Because that was the year before.
78,
and
yeah.
that's otherworldly, isn't it? And Krypton and all that. I know some of the Bond. I know John Glenn was second unit on that as well, as he was on this. So there is a bit of overlap in the universes that are going on. I agree with John, though. I think from Doctor No, it gradually perhaps gets more and more outlandish. People want escapism. You know, in the 70s as well, maybe times weren't quite as good then. around the world, and you want to go to the cinema, you want to see Bond save the world, and literally he does in this one, doesn't it? You know, it's the stakes get higher, and I think you've said previously, Live and Let Die and Man the Golden Gun are lower stake. They are sort of smaller missions where Bond has just got to stop something from going wrong, and that's partly their downfall in a way in terms of the plot. I think because if you sort of take it apart, it's like, well, does Bond actually need to be here anymore? Why is he here? What's he doing? With this, he has to be. With Spy Love Me, he has to be there. Otherwise, that's it. The world's going underwater, or he's going to be gassed in this one. So yeah, I've never had a problem with Bond going into space. When you watch it as a kid, you love it, and
Yeah.
I think it's like one of the same with Octopussy. You know, there's a clown in it. What a silly film, and it's that clickbait thing where, come on, there's a bit more to it than that. It's actually a Cold War spy thriller, and there is Tarzan things in it and gorillas in it and all sorts. Going into a crocodile, but yeah, Moonraker is the same. Like you say, most of it is in the normal world on Earth, and they go into space, like John says, because he's following Drax and his mission. So yeah, I have no issue with it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there, that this is all about escapism. And I think, to be honest, with Moonraker, its reputation kind of precedes itself. I think I can't vouch for audiences at the time, but if they'd have been following the Bond films that have been, you know, they've all been silly and kind of ridiculous in many ways, actually, looking back even before this point. But I don't know if the Go Into Space was like, I think it was because visually in cinema, audiences hadn't really seen anything like that before, and it was all very new and it was all very different. I'm sure it had some of its naysayers saying like, this is silly that he's gone to space, but I've never had that. And the first Bond film I ever saw, which you guys are absolutely going to love, was Casino Royale. That was my first ever Bond film that I watched.
John loves it, don't worry.
Great film.
But right before that, I think the one that I've seen the most amount of times now, and I think I've probably seen this film about 4 times, is Moonraker. So that's got to count for something, right? That there is a reason, whether it's on TV, whether it's one that I've just gone back to. Moonraker is the second most watched for me, which is, you know, absolutely testament to the film. And it is good fun. It's very dumb, but its heart feels like it's in the right place still. It feels just as charming, and we'll get onto the space stuff later, but I think visually it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm totally in it when he goes to space at the end. Wow. But the behind the scenes of the film is quite interesting as well, in that when Fleming wrote the book for this thing, he apparently had in mind that he knew that this one, probably above all others, was the one that he wanted to get a movie adaptation of at some point. Throughout the years, around the time it was written, the rights to it were sold to people, and then nothing ever came of it. And then I think Fleming ended up buying the rights back to it. So it was this whole like tug of war of will it or won't it kind of thing. And yeah, then when we get to it, you know, the production and everything, apparently it wasn't filmed much at Pinewood Studios either, which has like been a big thing for the James Bond films until this point, even the legacy of those studios now. Obviously, George, you can talk more about that when we get to it. It's a massive impact. And I think around the time there was some kind of taxation problem. It sounds like the beginning to Phantom Menace, doesn't it? There's taxation problems, and for whatever reason, I think tax was like really expensive filming in the UK at that point. So they decided to like up and move to France, and you had this sort of like England and French collaboration with this film in very many ways. And I think there was only 2 aspects that were filmed at Pinewood. I might be mistaken on this. I think it was the boat stuff when they had to take it back into studio, and the miniature stuff, like all the space stuff, I think, in terms of the special effects. I think that was pretty much it. Everything else was in France. So apparently they had like budgetary problems as well, which is mad considering the things they do with the budget in this film. Because on screen, I think it's still, when you get to that latter part of the film, it just looks as good as any of the other Bond films. There are some, I think it's like the rear projection stuff, which, you know, we're still in the 70s at this point. We're still breaking on through to the 80s. It's still not quite polished, but a lot of this film does look kind of cheap, but then you can see absolutely where all the money for this film went to at that ending. And oh boy, does it deliver.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point. If you're making this, it's not a space epic, I guess you could say, but if you're going to do the Bond film that goes to space, right, put the money in the space part of it. Don't worry about the first half. Mm-hmm. Get everything you want. And the studio stuff's incredible, because I was looking at it from this sense that they've just hyped up this 007 stage. Like, I think they wanted the Royals turn up to open it with them for the previous film. All of this, like, no, sorry, we don't want to pay your tax. We're just going to shoot it everywhere else now. And obviously, I'm not going to talk about tax because every film can have it, but it's one of them where it's kind of, not sad because it's still got something there, but it feels like, oh, we've got to at least do one thing there because that's our thing that we go there. And it's really interesting reading to some of the behind the scenes stuff with this too. But I think we mentioned last time John Barry missed out on doing the score. We'll get to him later on, but he missed out the score because of a tax credit type thing from the last film and using a certain amount of people. So it's really interesting how I think in this, obviously not just because it's more modern, but we still get stuff like all the tax credits, all this stuff, and everyone's filming in the UK again now over the last sort of 10 years. And I think when Episode 7 filmed, if Star Wars, the government cut a deal, and now every big studio is coming back. So there's a fascinating story to be had on taxation of films. And it might not be for Moonraker because that would divide from the incredible space discussion we can have. But it's
Phantom Menace. Thought you
were... yeah, it'd be incredible. But I think with the Bond films, is it really a Bond film if there's not a couple of behind the scenes issues? Like, has there ever been one that's so smooth sailing? And I'd say that for any film, but James Bond in particular, it's almost like everyone just wants to have its own spin-off story about how this actor's fed up, this fell through, this didn't work, and there's a couple in this which we'll get to. So it'll be very interesting.
I'm just going through in my head, and I actually think, I can't think of a single James Bond film that didn't have a piece of drama in the backstage. So, spot on.
You're right, isn't it? Like, got to know you thought they were spending way too much money. It was only $1 million. Yeah. And then the latest one, we know what's happened with that, don't we? But even before coronavirus, it's been in production hell, hasn't it?
Oh, cursed.
Different writers, different directors. Would it be Daniel Craig? And it's just, let's just hope the end product's, going to be okay. A bit like this one.
I mean, go on.
Sorry. So I was reading about Goldfinger the other day, and Goldfinger, one of the absolute gold standard Bond films. And in this story I was reading, the editor and the director showed it to the producers, and they watched it and they hated it, the editor and the director, and they thought, we need to cut there, we need to cut there, we need to cut there. And the producers went, let's just get it out. So the Guy Hamilton and the editor were really not happy with the final cut of that film. And now it's seen as a classic. Mm-hmm. And you just think, wow, there are always these issues.
Yeah, and it's, another comparison, like Star Wars, for example, when that was filmed, apparently that was, it's all through editing and all through, compromise and everything. And you always wonder, well, what could have been had they have kept it that way? Would it still have the same impact? But no, this was sort of like fascinating behind the scenes. And I was reading as well that apparently Spielberg was on board to direct this film around 1978. He turned it down. Again, another sci-fi film right off the back, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which there is a reference to in this film, which we'll get onto later. Yeah. So many film references, especially sci-fi ones, and one infamous one to Magnificent Seven, I guess we can say later on in the film. But yeah, I think despite how crazy this film is and sort of off the cuff for Bond with like the space stuff, whether it be that you've got the same director back, but also in terms of the actual pacing and sort of plot point by plot point. George, you were telling me about this earlier. It's basically exactly the same film as The Spy Who Loved Me, which in turn was also kind of exactly the same film as You Only Live Twice. Something is stolen, whether it be spacecraft, whether it be submarines. And this one, again, it's another spacecraft. A villain who wants to, bring about the apocalypse essentially and create like a new world, and a big shootout at the end in some kind of elaborate villain base. It's all kind of there. So you've got all the same beats as those Bond films you know and love, even from the one previously, but you have just this brand new aesthetic with a much sillier tone. So I guess you can say that the director gave us one of the best, and I guess you can kind of say played straight. There's always a hint of campiness to like the early Bond films, whether it be the 60s or the 70s, probably the 80s, probably the 90s, all the ones up until Craig, really, essentially.
Yeah.
But how he did two very different Bond films back to back, the same director. That's what gets me the most, I think. That he was like, here's your serious Bond film if this is what you want, like The Gentleman's Spy, played straight, and here's your wacky one if this is the kind of side that you love to Bond. So it's this neat little package deal that came out one after the other, I think.
It's really interesting. We'll get to Drax in a bit, and I think it's one of them where we spoke last time about all the Blofeld stuff and how we were so happy that I mean, I was not happy for legal stuff, but all the whole Kevin McCroy stuff that you can't use Spectre, can't use this. When you think of James Bond, you think of the giant villain bases, not just obviously not just Bond, but you think of the villain, the bases, the henchmen, all that kind of stuff, and it comes together into that Bond formula. And if we'd have been bogged down with another Blofeld name, another Spectre film, I think you lose it. And what they've been able to do in the last two films is bring back that ridiculous, over-the-top megalomaniac. You know, this time he's not about loving the sea. This obviously it's into space, and it works. And obviously not just with the whole sci-fi thing, but I'm sure, you know, let's look at modern day. Not getting into too much, but would you all be surprised if Elon Musk tried to wipe us out tomorrow and set up a community in space? I wouldn't be. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you see things like that, and it's like, yeah, like these billionaires can be weird, and it kind of works, right? It hasn't aged badly. If anything, it's probably pointing in the other direction. So it's one of them where I love the fact that I know it's sort of jumping an entry point, but for him to come back and do something similar but different, I think helps James Bond down the line. So in the future, we can keep coming back to these wacky villains or these wacky ideas saying, this has all worked in the past. Let's continue on and let's not do the exact same thing as before, because we don't want another volcano base. We don't want another underwater lair.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a space station. And that's what we're here for. And, you know, I think with Bond now, I'm not going to say it's like Fast and Furious or Mission Impossible. It's like, what are they going to do next? I think because James Bond has done so much of that leading up to the Craig era, or maybe the early, it's still the post 9/11 stuff. They always that kind of filmmaking style, and we're sort of in modern days a really quick thing. We're left sort of wanting that ridiculous, over the top escapism, and so many successful films at the time now. You know, Fast and Furious again. The last film, The Rock pushed a torpedo with his bare hands whilst standing at a door. You know, things like that. Exactly, and like I could see Roger Moore doing that in the 70s. Yeah. They really wanted to have it, and Bond's had sequences on the ice, and it worked very well. And I don't. I just, yeah, exactly. That car chase is just unbelievable. But I'm just, I don't know why I'm ranting now, but I love the whole space concept, and the fact that Chris Gemmett, we said, the fact is the same director, I think helps it. Like, yes, the story's the same, but how many directors would come on board? I feel like I'm going to keep making digs at Daniel Craig. I love Skyfall, and then you get to Spectre, and it's kind of with Sam Mendes. It's like I'm making my exact same film now, but I've got Blofeld in this, and it's like you can tell that's the same director. You can tell it's a carbon copy, same director for two films straight. Whereas you look at some of the other ones, Lewis Gilbert, obviously, have I forgotten his name? Who did GoldenEye and Casino Royale, two completely different films that you never would imagine was the same director.
True. So true.
And I think we have this in Moonraker, and what a perfect film to go all out for, because you're not going to get any further out of the space. So that's my little space run over.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of Moonraker, there are absolute similarities in the story between that and Spy Who Loved Me. But personally, and this is an unpopular opinion, I actually prefer Moonraker. I think, objectively speaking, I can understand why some people would say Spy Who Loved Me is the better film. But what I do think Moonraker does is it cranks everything up to volume 10. And it to me, bigger is better. More is more. You know, and Roger Moore is more. And also, there we go, yeah. And it makes improvements on some of the things that were good ideas in The Spy Who Loved Me, but possibly character-wise that possibly weren't executed as well as they could be. So, in my opinion, both Drax and Holly Goodhead are actually better versions of Triple X and Stromberg, and more fleshed out versions. It's like Gilbert makes improvements on those same concepts, and for me, this is just such an enjoyable film for it.
Gosh, yeah. In terms of the directors following on from each other, it does help. I think it does. I think the early ones, you know, from Russia with Love, coming after Dr. No, having the same Terence Young, that helps. I know some people, you won't like the Guy Hamilton 3 in a row, will you, in the 70s? Sorry, 2 in a row in the 70s, but...
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan. But yeah, going back to Sam Mendes, yeah, I just think it's a totally different approach. We've said this many times on the podcast that James Bond was a family. It was the same editors becoming second unit, becoming proper directors like John Glenn, and they knew exactly what they needed from the films. And I think by this stage now, James Bond's just a family. They know what they need to do. They know who to hire, and they know they've got the set pieces. It's often, I mean, this one particularly, the whole thing's pretty much centered around set pieces, isn't it? And then trying to fit the plot around it. And I actually think that works. I think that works in this film. Whereas I think by the time you get to Spectre particularly, at least Skyfall is a proper story of the beginning, middle, and end. Spectre, they've just got too much going on. And having to throw in well, not having to, but throwing in the brother thing, throwing in the Spectre organisation and pretending that, I wonder who this guy is, even though the film's called Spectre. It's just, there's too many things that's spinning. There's got the character arc you've had to deal with. And then they go and introduce a new love, long-term love interest. And it's like, no, just give us a more simple Bond like Moonraker. That's we as Bond fans, particularly John and I, we will say that any day of the week. This is something you can throw on in the afternoon and just casually watch it. You don't have to be emotionally invested in the story whatsoever. Okay, things like Casino Royale, you'll get more reward in story terms, but are you more entertained?
It's like the Gladiator thing. You're not entertained.
Went full Russell Crowe then, accidentally.
Yeah. I'll say I was completely entertained by the pre-credit sequence to this film. Like, my God, for some reason, as I mentioned, like this is my second most watched Bond film. I couldn't remember the pre-credit scene. Sorry to this film. I remember all the other stuff. I remember we'll get onto it. The gondola, the snake fight, the space stuff, but. This was an incredible opener. Like, God, like, and reading about it as well. Just watched it. Me and you, George, we reviewed Point Break earlier this year, which was a great film to go back to. And I know this film obviously predates Point Break, but it's so amazing. And now, like, even in retrospect, I'm thinking about Point Break, and there's like, this had to be inspired, or at least, in some way by this incredible opening sequence. Doing some reading on it, I think it was, there is a number here of how many jumps they did. I think it was like 88 skydives it took in total to get this sequence completely down, what you see in the final film. You had Don Calvert, who was the skydiving coordinator, bringing on skydiving champions to all be a part of it and come up with new kit as well. I think they had the concealed parachute with these little tabs that would come off, so you could have the actors in shot. It's nice that the stuntmen in this scene kind of got a scene to just sort of like showcase their talents as well. Because when you watch it, you can clearly tell that it's not, it's not Jaws. It's not Roger Moore in the scene. And that's fine. And that's totally cool. And I love how they blend it in. You get the really awkward studio shots with Roger Moore where he's behind a rear projection, which stick out like a sore thumb. But it's all part of it. And I've said this with... as I mentioned with like the 60s films and the 70s films, I love those rear projections. I love those tricks of the camera that they had to do at the time, and there is like an inherent charm to filmmaking like that now. I think we're very spoiled by today's standards where the sky's the limit pretty much. This was a great sequence, and I think it showcases everything about this film. If you ask me to pick one scene from this film that sums this film up that isn't the space stuff at the end of the film, you go with this one, because you kick off and it feels very much like a played straight, disparate adventure that Bond's on. I've always mentioned that I do love those openers where it's just the cold opening. It's just, I like the ones that link into the plot, as we had from last week and on Her Majesty's Secret Service, that feel like a complete package film, like a dramatic beginning, middle, and end. But I do love the ones that are just like a random adventure that Bond's on, and you get that, and he's in peril. You don't know how he's going to get out of this situation. You know he is, you just don't know how. And at the very end, it's punctuated with Jaws again, the character who can't be killed in any way, shape, or form. And he lands in a giant circus tent. And it's just like, as punctuation at the end of that scene, how perfect is that? Tonally, that just says everything you need to know about the film. And then we go into the main title sequence. It's incredible just how it was shot, though. Like, fair play to them for getting all of that in camera, because you'd never have had that nowadays. Now, you'd have had elements, but a lot of it would be CGI, and it's just takes you out of it. So give me those stuntmen that look nothing like the respective characters. I'm all for it. I love it. I thought it's probably one of my favorite openers, actually.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that Jaws falling at the end. It epitomizes this, that we have the return of the henchmen from the last film, and I believe the only returning henchman of all of them. But I'm not saying that there are some funny moments in that film with him. It's not intentional like this film, but as a sign of what's to come, his facial expressions as he's falling into it's incredible. But it's what you want. And the way I kind of saw this, because it was before the whole sort of comparison to the last film, but the last film, their pre-credit sequence, they had that stunt on the steps, right? And it was this incredible opening. How do you try and top that? Because the thing of the Bond films is it's very one-upmanship in a good way. They want to improve upon the last film. And it's like skydiving. Absolutely makes, I don't want to say makes perfect sense, but we've not seen it in a Bond film yet. And they can do some really interesting stuff cinematically that other films might not have done. And I think it's a really cool place to start. And I love the whole random sequence again. Like, just I don't know the name of the character, but that guy who's the other parachute man that eventually dies. Just he looks like sort of phone jacker or something. It's just incredible. And I think that's the thing with the Roger Moore era, right? It doesn't matter who they are, what they're wearing, they just look like they fit in no matter what they look like.
Yeah.
And he's in like a bright orange jumpsuit. It's like, we're just going to get something ridiculous. And I think he has an elongated scream as he eventually falls towards his death. But Jaws just pops up and kicks him out the plane. It's like the train scene from last one. Like, was he just chilling somewhere the entire time again? Like, just waiting for his moment? And I'm all here for it. It's what you want. And the thing with the Bond credit scenes, and I'm going to bring Craig in, the only one of his era I feel that's genuinely done it properly has been Spectre. You want something that works as a short film, that is something insane to get you in the mood for what's about to happen. And I think this one does it with so many great ones. I kind of keep saying them all the time, but there are a couple of big standouts in the whole franchise. My favourite's always been Dine of the Day, but there's some really, I think this is up there again, setting the benchmark of the last film. You know, they've set a level. This one's going to follow it, so future films can always have these to go back to, and I love it. And it's not been copied since within Bond yet, which is quite interesting.
It's a fantastic opening sequence. What I'd say is the skydiving is amazing, but it's preceded by an absolutely harrowing bit where you've got two guys hijack a shuttle and just blow up an aeroplane by setting it off. And it's like, I remember as an 11-year-old boy being traumatized by this, and then it just going to Moneypenny going, James is on his last leg, sir, you know, and like, all right. And there's Roger copping off with woman number 1 of 4 from the film. Yeah. And, you know, good old Roger. And it's and basically, like, straight away, we're into quality territory. The Jaws aspect of it, if any of them great a bit, is probably this one, because it can take away from just how amazing the stunts are. And the stunts are absolutely incredible. And unfortunately, you'll get some naysayers say, oh, it's just got Jaws like flapping around like an elephant being silly. And yes, it has. But I find that funny. But you have to actually appreciate what's gone before, and those stunts are absolutely exceptional. And also, when Jaws falls into the circus, the sequence really moves nicely into the spinning bit with the Maurice Binder titles that goes into the song as well. It's quite similar to the World Is Not Enough one, when Pierce Brosnan falls off onto the Millennium Dome and then it goes into the World Is Not Enough bit there. I really like that when it goes from the pre-title sequence into a title sequence. It's a cracking sequence. It's in my top 10. It's probably not as good as the Spy Who Loved Me sequence. That is to me probably the ultimate sequence.
Just for iconography, right? With that, when that parachute, right?
Oh, it's just beautiful. It's the 5 second. It's the 5 second pause where there is nothing. Like, James Bond's going to die. He's going to die, and then all of a sudden, like, you've just got bang, and it's just superb. Go on, Tom. Sorry.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Just think about it. When you think of James Bond moments like that's one of the ultimate, isn't it? The opening of the parachute. But for me, on this in Moonraker, where it's so Roger Moore, you know, wearing a suit and brogues, mid-air, no parachute, he just sort of turns and basically flies to the Bond theme. just can't beat stuff like this. What other franchise would have that? I know you say, oh, you just lost all Jeopardy because you know he's going to be fine. But when that Bond theme hits, it's quite a quick version of the Bond theme, and he's going down, isn't he, to catch up with Jaws to try and get his parachute off him. And these stunts are absolutely incredible.
He goes streamlined, doesn't he? He goes streamlined. The other guy is just in free fall.
It's so well shot and directed. I know. Again, I keep mentioning John Glenn, but he of course did the opening for the Spy Love Me, and he shot this one as well. So I think it was California, maybe they did it, and it is breaking new ground, like you say. 80 different flights up, and then
it's unbelievable.
It's just experimental filmmaking, whilst the rest of the film was being, the first unit was going on. You've got all this groundbreaking stuff being shot, and it's Roger. You know what you're going to get with him now. He's really in his stride. I know we'll talk about his performance later, but he's if you had the wrong actor doing this, it would go off completely wrong. You wouldn't appreciate the humour in it as well. It is. I think it's probably in the top 5, definitely pre-title sequences for me. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that the film itself, just generally, and this kind of goes with Roger Moore's performance as well, it's such a delicate balance, because I think if they went too far in one way and made it too silly, then I think it would have, some people might have got a kick out of it, but it feels, Roger Moore almost feels like he's grounding it. He's the same old Roger Moore that we know and love at that point. Yeah. And just like the last thing I'll say on the pre-credits scene is that when I watched Spy Who Loved Me last week, I think it was one of the first of, I've probably done it with some of the earlier Bond films in, trying to think about it, but it was the first one where I've gone, the lighting in that scene is amazing. The cinematography is awesome in that scene, especially around the stuff with Egypt. I had another moment with this one from this opening scene going, I can't even imagine how they would have filmed this. And then later on reading, as I mentioned, like 88 jumps, it's just, you don't really appreciate all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into a sequence like that. You can watch it and just go, that's incredible. But, when you try and think about the logistics of it, it's absolutely amazing. But that takes us very nicely on to talking about Moore himself in this film. I mentioned last week in The Spy Who Loved Me, which obviously compared to this one is the one that plays it a little bit more straight. I do love when Roger Moore can be more dramatic in the role. There's the great moment from last week where Triple X mentions about Tracy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. She references that, and he plays it so well. You can really see that pain that he's like trying to keep under the surface. He's like, don't talk about that. And I love seeing that side of Moore. Yeah. This is just fun Moore, though. And he looks like he's having a great time on it as well. Oh, yeah. And that absolutely comes through when you watch the film. It's just Bond doing what he does best. It's Roger Moore doing what he does best. It's, if it ain't the one-liners, it's just his mannerisms. It's the, 4 women he has in this film. I was losing count as this film was going on. Even the locations, there's so many in this film. Yeah. There just comes a point where the plot kind of stops in this film, and it's like, oh, Bond, take a break for 2 weeks. And it's just like a day in the life of Roger Moore as Bond. It's fantastic. We mentioned like lack of progression. I think it's, it's still the great Roger Moore, even from the previous film. It's just a different tone. It's just, whether it be from the higher ups, and because I think all of these films, whether they have their shortcomings or their positives, it all comes from the producers up above. You can pin it on the director, maybe they make choices, but ultimately the tone they wanted to go for this film usually comes from the higher ups, and then they just get everyone, directors, producers, writers, to make that vision happen. And it's great. I'm fine that it was a tonal whiplash going from last week, because I really loved that film, but again, I already knew what I was going into with this film. I knew the tone of this film, and Moore just gets you through it, doesn't he? Now, I think next week, I've mentioned this on the previous weeks, For Your Eyes Only is the last Bond film for a good while that I've actually seen. So I still haven't seen Octopussy. I still haven't seen View to a Kill. I know. So it's going to be brand new territory for me. But, if Moore keeps this going all the way up until the end, then I'm here for it. He's just fantastic.
Chris, can you do a live reactions video when you watch it?
Good, yeah. Maybe check that in.
You're gonna love it. I hope you do. If you like Moonraker, then
yeah,
it's
the best of everything really on the other one.
I think this is the thing with Moonraker, right? You can't. This sounds mental, but his future films can't work if you don't already have Moonraker. Like, I know a lot of people hate View to a Kill.
Yeah.
But like, we've seen moments like that in previous films, and I think Roger Moore's always had these like, not inklings of where it's coming, but we spoke about how, and obviously the first two, it's very much, it's not really Roger Moore's Bond yet. It's still the you are James Bond. This was Sean Connery's role, and the last film, it's like, yeah, this is Roger Moore's James Bond. You get to this one, it's like, no one is Roger Moore but Roger Moore, and it's like no one can do it. It was cheesy. I'm saying the song lyrics sound like from the last one. I don't think anyone can do it better than Roger Moore can for what they want to do with the character. Doesn't matter how silly it is, the villain it is. Even you notice more of the eyebrow raisings in this one. Everything about him. It's like I hate using the words like prime Roger Moore because he's always incredible as Bond, but it's like another definitive Roger Moore Bond performance. And I think the fact it's back to back with Spy Who Loved Me, I just think makes it so much more charming that he went from that to that straight away. And they're very similar, but so different. And even the stuff with Jaws, when we get to them later, we know obviously they were really good friends outside of Bond. And you can see on screen that they clearly enjoy filming with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of them incredible things where, you know, from the opening scene with him to future scenes, the fact that it's like Roger Moore trying to be a spy, I guess we could say, because the one thing I always sort of criticize with Live and Let Die and Man of the Golden Gun, it's not really been about spying. It's not that I need that 100% in a Bond film, but in this one, it's kind of like he's trying to do it again, and I'm all here for it. He's not pretending to put a third nipple on and declare himself Christopher Lee, but it's very much. I don't know. There's something about him. It's not like I want to say words like action hero, but he's none of it, is he? He's literally like Roger Moore. Like if you were to sort of take a definitive take of each of the Bonds, I think his stands out as being the most by himself. And I think as the years have gone by, you know, bring up Craig once more. With Spectre, everyone was saying, you know, it's a bit Roger Moore-esque. If you look at his early films, his later ones, he's trying to do the cufflink stuff, and I was like, but that's a Roger Moore thing, and no one can pull off except Roger Moore. And I think that's why it's incredible that Roger Moore got the films like this. I don't think he could have ever worked in many of the Connery films or the Brosnan ones. I don't think any of them could have done his films. And I think him in this, I kind of mentioned lack of progression. Like, we know that they don't really develop the Bonds up until 2006, that there's a continuation to a point, or they reach a defining performance. But I think right here we have the sort of top of the mountain with the last one. And I'm not saying the others are a come down, but obviously Moonraker and Spy Who Loved Me, I think, are the two Roger Moore films where it's, if you're going to pair any of them on, it's these two or View to a Kill for me.
If you want to be entertained, this is prime Roger Moore. I mean, I just don't think you get an actor like this man these days who knows his limitations, but knows his strengths and absolutely plays to them in just the greatest way. It'll be interesting to see what you think of For Your Eyes Only when you go through each of you, because that is a very much restrained, serious performance, more in keeping with probably a Connery tone. But for this one, one of the main things that Drax does all the way through is he creates these stupid ways to kill him, and Drax references is that I want him using death sphere. And apart from the spinning thing that I forgot the name of, which centrifuge, that's it. That he looks genuinely terrified when he comes out of that. He looks horrendously terrified. The rest of it, Roger is nonplussed throughout it. I mean, it's just like he is completely in, and every line is finished with a quip. Every time he sees a bit of danger, we've got an eyebrow raise. We've got smarmy comments to the women. And it's just, I'm not condoning it, but it's just pure entertainment from start to finish. And nobody else could do this film. And I would never want anyone else to do this film. This is just Roger at his greatest.
By now, they're writing it with Roger in mind as Bond, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Totally geared towards his skills, and I agree with John. I think you might get a shock with For Your Eyes Only because he is really good at the gritty stuff. He's really good at that. But this is like if you ask someone in the street what's Roger Moore like as Bond, you describe his character in this film, I think. And apart from the centrifuge scene is a brilliant scene, and the acting of him in real jeopardy and pain is all there for everyone to see. But it's things like, of course, he's obsessed with information. Roger is always obsessed with how about information and all this. So there's in Man with the Golden Gun, it's like while snogging women, he's like, yeah, but can you just tell me about this that I need to get to the MI6 and all. But when he's going to try and get the timepiece, the plans with Karine, it's like, to be honest, that gets her killed. And we'd be hypocrites, wouldn't we? If this was Craig, we'd be like, oh, what an idiot. He just got this woman killed and he doesn't care. But Roger doesn't seem to care. He doesn't even know that she dies, does he? That's an awful scene. But yeah, it's him, and I've never met anyone who doesn't like this depiction of James Bond. They might say, of course, Connery is the ultimate, and I like his more serious tone, and he can do the charm and all that. But be honest, if you show this to a child, and I know, I don't know whether John has yet, but Chris on our podcast, he's been showing them to his son, and Moonraker's his favourite. And it's from that opening title sequence. It's just complete escapism for a kid. I know he's got like a shuttle now and everything. It's just, and Roger Moore. I'm sure most children growing up would love him. They would absolutely love him.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up. We'll get onto it when we talk about villains, but I know in terms of the depiction of Jaws in this film was mostly decided through a lot of fan mail from children who said, like, why can't Jaws be a goodie? Why does he always have to be a baddie? And according to the DVD commentary, I think that was on, I did some reading earlier. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just looking at later on in the plan favorite scenes. I think that might be the biggest section we've done on one of these Bond videos yet when we get to favorite scenes, because there are so many. You mentioned the centrifuge scene. That's one of mine. We'll be talking about all those later. It's basically just the entire film. We'll just go through the entire film.
Wow. So excited.
Shall we try sifting through some of these Bond girls then? Because there might be more than we thought. I'm going to bring up briefly, because this isn't the plan, but Manuela, his contact in Rio, I guess she'd count as a Bond girl. She fills that role. The Ada, probably one of, like, I don't want to say most iconic. There's so many iconic scenes in this film, god damn it. But the Rio scene, that was a scene that always stood out to me as really memorable, with the altercation with Jaws. And she's a great character. She's not in it a whole bunch, but she kind of has an impact within that scene. I think that standoff between Jaws and Bond, I love that moment where everyone's sort of like parading through the middle, and it's just them staring down at each other. It's such a great shot. And then the really corny moment where Jaws gets carried away by and he's trying to get back to Bond, and he's just like, fuck it, I'll dance, and like, I'll get you next time, Bond. Like, yeah, there's not really much to say about Manuela. I'm getting Fawlty Towers vibes from the name. But,
I'm glad they didn't kill her. I think that's a big thing. That because we know so many of them die, and obviously we're going to talk about when they just die, as we always do. But when you've got the whole clown walking up, the whole scene build up to it, it's great, and it's quite. And I think it's again that jump. We've had the funny circus moment, but we know that's going to be Jaws even before you know it's him, and he's going back for the old bite, the old mystery bikes and stuff. I get why, but I've never really got it in that sense, like why. But anyway, and I think that's the definitive scene in which we know that he's going to comedy now. The whole carrying him, that is the moment where we say, okay, this is ridiculous, and I'm all here for it. And the most important thing is Rich Kill can pull it off. I don't think if you can take a really serious act. I'm not saying he's a comedy actor, but there's always that discussion that comedy actors can do drama better than dramatic actors can do comedy. And I think I'm not saying he's a dramatic actor, not enough of his stuff, but it's very much like, he's funny. It's like, is he always going to be funny? Either way, I'm in. And obviously, then we get what happens later on in this plan and everything else. But we don't get much of it. I think if they hadn't already killed a Bond girl, they'd have probably killed her. Right? I think even they probably had to switch up for this one.
I mean, my thing with Manuela is, like, Rogers just flew from Venice to Brazil. He's probably, any normal human being would be suffering from jet lag and would just want to have a sleep. But Roger wants to kill 4 hours in Rio with She's shaking the martini, shaking upstairs. I mean, The guy is a machine. But
I was losing track of where he was in this film. I was like, you don't even get like traveling montage. It cuts and he's in Venice. It cuts and he's in Rio. I'm like, oh my god, can we stay in one place for more than 10 minutes, please?
Unbelievable, that man. What was slightly disappointing, we were thinking our podcast is that we're obsessed that basically wherever they go, the contact usually has the same initial. So if you go to Turkey, the contact is at station T, or if you go to India, the contact is station I. So you'd think Manuela would be either station B for Brazil or R for Rio, and she's station VH. And I didn't get that at all. Like, she's the anomaly of the series. So if anybody knows what VH stands for, please comment in the section below.
Attention to detail. Yeah, she's one. I haven't seen it for quite a few years until I saw it recently, and I just always assumed she died. I always thought Jaws killed her in the carnival scene. So it was quite oh no, actually, the jeopardy was there. Again, I keep saying that word. This, it turns into a horror film, doesn't it? For that scene, that shot, it is like Don't Look Now or something like that. That's sort of building and gradually getting closer. And yeah, you're genuinely scared for her. But she's not, she's technically an ally rather than a Bond girl, I suppose. Just that they, I don't know whether she has much say in it, but Roger gets his way. He always gets his way. Yeah. She's a tertiary Bond girl, and there aren't too many of those with as big a part as her.
Yeah. And poor Richard Keel in that scene as well. I watched it. I actually watched it twice in preparation for this. When he takes that hell, he looks like he's sweating buckets, man. Yeah. He looks like he's struggling in that first initial shot. Like, fair play to him. Absolutely fair play. I guess we move on to our second Bond girl then. We'll talk about the one that dies first, I think, and then we'll get to sort of like the main headliner. We're working our way up. So we have Karine Default, who's actually played by Karine Clary. Very imaginative name there, guys. Well done. I really like this character. So we're introduced to her very early on. She's personal pilot of Drax, and she's kind of almost like Bond's eyes and ears, really, at the big mansion house that they go to. And the way she dies, it's great. I love that scene where she like helps Bond get into the safe, and then we get that slow zoom in that we know Drax has been watching. He's got eyes everywhere. And, like that tension when they're out shooting the day after, and she tries to lie and say, oh, I don't know anything about this. Is like, I saw you. I know what you've done. I terminate your employment immediately. You may leave. And we were talking about this before we started recording today, but the dog part, which is beautifully set up. And again, this is like another hindsight film for me, but Last Action Hero with, oh God, I forgot his name. Who's the guy who played Tywin Lannister? My God.
Charles Dance.
Charles Dance, thank you. He has the trained dogs where he just clicks his fingers and they all like stack up in like a pyramid shape. It's fantastic. I love that film. Yeah. But the trained dogs, and tonally it just completely changes. And I don't want to talk about too much about the music. Everything's all interconnected, so we're going to be jumping around everywhere here. But Barry's score in this scene where she's being hunted down by the dogs, it becomes a different movie. It's fantastic. And I love how you see them sort of like pounce on her and the camera pans up. You don't need to show anything gratuitous. You know exactly what happens, and it's just one of the many things that sets Drax up as an amazing Bond villain, in my opinion. He's definitely one of my favorites. He'd probably be in my, I don't know if he'd be in my top 3. Definitely a top up. Yeah. And that click,
so scary,
so good, and it just sets them up beautifully. It does wonders, not just because it shocks the audience for that scene. It feels very different, but it's a beautiful build for what even before that point was a great villain, in my opinion, with Drax. Is just the presence that he has immediately is just great.
And I think what makes the scene worse is that she knows what's happening as well. Like the moment she starts to clock it, I'm not going to do a whole Simpsons like, why don't you get in the buggy and drive away? But it stands out in a Bond scene that, there's been a couple of sort of, darker scenes over the years and things like that. And in the Roger Moore era, this is like, you could take that scene in isolation and you can show that to anyone. They're not going to think that's a James Bond film. The way it's done, the music, the whole... I know this sounds really unfair. Even panning up on the camera when they get her at the end, that feels like not like an art house film, but that's that kind of, overly elaborate. Oh, this was this really dramatic moment in this like Oscar-winning theme, and it's none of that. It's a James Bond film because she's betrayed her boss once, and I think that it's really fascinating because I kind of said this to Chris. I can't remember if it was before we went live or it was maybe yesterday, but it feels not even dark for Bond standards, but the death is uncomfortable because it's not like a normal Bond film death. Like, oh, here's a over the top person painted gold, and here's, you know, fed to piranhas, fed to sharks, fed to this and fed to that. And it's like, let's just have the dogs hunt them down and dispose of them, and not, because normally the Bond films will show it. I don't want to see it. I'm glad they didn't show it. But I think if you're establishing your villain, because we know he's got a threat, we know that there's stuff going on, but we need to see how bad he's going to be. And the fact that the whole click of the fingers, I think is one of the most iconic scenes from the film. And I think what a way to start to big him up, and what a really horrible way to go out, because someone that never, normally, again, the other sort of Bond deaths, like they've done something horrible to deserve that. Whereas this one's kind of like, oh, like she obviously betrayed him and slept with James Bond as they all do, but it wasn't the bog standard sort of Bond type thing. And I don't know, it's really odd. And not that I don't like it, it's just it's really different. And Christian, it's a tone change, and I think because we know it's Moonraker, it's the silly one, it's this, it's like here's some dog hunting human side story to end those conversations.
Absolutely. The film is slightly schizophrenic in parts in terms of the centrifuge, and this scene is very Hammer horror, really, in terms of the slow-mo dog running. And even when the camera pans away from when she dies, would I be right in saying there's church bells ringing here?
Like a death toll, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you very much. It's a harrowing scene. But what it does is we have a sacrificial lamb in pretty much every James Bond film, but you remember who this one is because it's so iconic. And does it fit in this? Yeah, no, it does fit in this film. It does. It isn't in keeping with a lot of the film, but I wouldn't take it out. I think it's a brilliant scene, and Barry's score is one of the main reasons why it excels it.
I think it's crucial, as I said before, that Bond doesn't see this, because it just wouldn't work, would it? You know, you'd know the audience would be like, "Oh, he must have such guilt and pain," and then he just goes and kills 4 hours in Rio, or whatever, later. But it establishes Drax first of all as a proper baddie, and we don't see enough of that. It's quite difficult when you've got a baddie he's just all talk, isn't he? He's got a way with words. He's not a physical threat, really, is it, to Bond? So you've got to get him to do awful stuff in some other way. And you know, Stromberg does it, doesn't he, at the beginning with the guys in the helicopter, and he explodes the helicopter, and he sends, of course, his assistant PA or whatever into the shark pit. And this is like an equivalent of Drax showing no mercy on someone who's betrayed him. I think it's brilliant. I think she's good, actually. I think she's one of the last Bond girls who was dubbed, but you can't really tell. It's not too bad a dubbing. And the scene is another standout. I think you'll see this a lot as you go along. Nowadays, when they film a Bond, it has to be all serious. You know, it has to have the same tone throughout. And For Your Eyes Only is mainly serious with a few silly things. Octopuses, honestly, there's so many tonal shifts in it. There's a similar scene at the beginning with the clowns, not Bond, 009 being chased. And it's really effective as like a horror scene. Yeah, and then you get, of course, the Tarzan bits, and you get, you know, the Bond in a crocodile and all that. But this is more the opposite, where this is mainly sort of very silly and far-fetched, and the odd, like this and the centrifuge scene. Oh, there's the guys getting gassed, isn't there, as well? In the laboratory, you know, there's some dark stuff here for one that we say is best for the kids.
Yeah.
I think it's what you mentioned as well, that no one's present as well. It feels very voyeuristic, and you really get that sense of isolation, that there is no one around to help at all. Like, and it makes you wonder how they're going to get out of that situation. Bond in the centrifuge, like we'll talk about that later, that's genuine moment of tension, which I kind of expected when they said we're going to put you Connery in this spine stretching thing, and that's absolutely not what we got in that film. Was that Thunderball? I think was that the beginning of Thunderball? Oh, very silly scene, incredibly silly scene, but no, it's incredible.
I agree.
Doesn't hold up well at all in any way. But let's talk about the main Bond girl for this one then. So we've got American actress Lois Charles playing Holly Goodhead. One of my favorite bits of dialogue at the beginning is just Roger Moore, James Bond being absolute misogynistic. It's like she's like, I'm Dr. Goodhead. It's like, a woman? Like, it's just like, a woman could be a doctor? What? I love it. So apparently she was actually offered the role for Triple X from the previous movie. But I think she was going through she was taking temporary retirement at the time and didn't want to be on board for it. And then apparently she got this gig by absolute chance. She was on a flight with Lewis Gilbert. She was on the seat right next to him, and he believed that she'd be a good fit for the Bond girl for this film. So as I mentioned, we have Holly Goodhead now. I kind of don't like her. I like the concept of the character again, but I honestly think this is purely down to a performance thing for me. She just sounds so bored. Every line delivery, she just feels like she doesn't want to be there. It's the bit on the cable cars where she's just like, hang on, James. Yeah, it's just, come on, let's try another take there. Let's get a bit of fire and enthusiasm in it. She's just so boring. She's just so boring. And, I like that she's this sassy character at the beginning, kind of, throwing some sass back at James Bond. They're always my favorite Bond girls, but this is a performance thing for me. She's just mind-numbingly boring the entire film for me.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't think you care about, and that's my problem with this, is that, if the dogs were chasing her down, obviously, but oh god, it's the dog scene again. But I cared more about the characters we saw get massacred on screen versus this, because we got one important scene with it, but we learned a lot about her and other dynamics. And if I just never really cared about her. And it's when they're all in space with the one, and even the last one, I had problems with the Bond last one, but I really enjoyed it. It's just one of my more favorite ones. But I was just kind of there, not today to watch it the other day, but I was just like, does he really care about you that much? Like, would Roger Moore really carry on trying to get this? And I think she's probably one of the worst parts. And I don't think she's memorable. I don't bar the name, right? How many people? And Chris, you've because if that was made today, that's gonna be the Roger Moore joke, and we know.
So it's right up there with Pussy Galore, isn't it? I think
exactly. and this is why I just said like Dr. Goodhead, and it's just I don't know. I don't think there's much of a legacy with her, which is such a man. That's the thing, and that's what's really bad. Like the funniest thing is the misogynistic, because it's the 1970s, isn't it? And I think that's what it's funny. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like, that's the most memorable part about this character is a joke on her. And I think that's where it loses me. And I think I don't want it to be horrible, so they killed the wrong person. But she's just. I think maybe because we know what's going to happen, that we've already seen one die, so he's going to have to tag himself to somebody else. And I don't know if that plays a part in it, but I just don't like it. And you are right, the actress as well. I don't think she's that good in it. I don't think she's. I hate saying one of the better Bond girls, but I'm ready to move on.
Right,
it's really sad. It's really sad. You can't
I'm sure James Bond is as well by the end of this film. He's lining the next one up, isn't he?
I think because in this film everything else is so ridiculous. It's just, the most boring part of it is unfortunately a supporting character, which says a lot about the film in a good way. But you kind of want someone ridiculous. Like Jaws' missus is more memorable than the Bond. And she's great, and all she does is smile.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just starting on a woman. For about 4 years ago, that was my alarm clock in the morning. I just love it. Oh, he just walks. It's just sorry. Yeah. He just walks in smiling away like, I'm looking for Dr. Goodhead. And you just found her. A woman. It's the greatest piece of dialogue in Roger's history for me. I love it. But I'm going to defend her because I actually think that I agree that in parts her performance isn't very expressive. However, she has a far better character and character journey than Agent Triple X does. So the idea of Agent Triple X in the last film was we've got Bond's equal, we've got a spy, and that is a brilliant concept. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it just ends up with a woman in a bikini tied up that James has to save at the end of it. What we have here is a CIA agent who Bond starts misogynistically doubting because she's a woman, not the CIA agent, but that she's actually like a doctor. But then what we have is actually this agent is the one who takes them to space. So Bond is completely reliant on her to actually get her to space. And then there's that scene where they go and try and find out the tracking, the thing that stops the tracking of the space station. And they go in there and she just batters those two guys. James just stands by and he's just like, fair play to you. And she has a bit more meat to her in terms of her character than Anya does, because basically in the previous film, all we saw with Anya was every time she tried doing something, George just kicked her out of the way. She was utterly useless. And I think the character of Dr. Goodhead is a better character. It's a more fleshed out character.
More consistent, probably, as well.
It's more consistent, yeah. I would agree that some of the delivery of the dialogue isn't great. But one thing that we've discussed before is that when you look at the lead Bond girls or Bond women throughout the series who are played by Americans, it's quite inconsistent. So you've got Pam Bouvier in License to Kill, who is absolutely fantastic. But then you've got Denise Richards in World Is Not Enough, who I will defend, but I'm pretty much the only one who will. And then you've got Stacey Sutton in View to a Kill, who starts well, but then she gets in a fire and all you hear is, James! James! And it's like, all right, well, take the frog out your throat. And then you've... and I don't know who else you've got. Is there any other American? Oh, there's Jill St. John, who actually starts quite well in Diamonds Are Forever.
Tiffany Case.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she starts quite well, and then by the end, she's like, eee! And she has to, like,
The machine gun bit kills me every time.
Machine gun bit, yeah. So the American women of Bond don't have a good track record. Mm-hmm. So when you compare them to the rest of them, I think Lois Childs does a solid job.
Do you want the Bond girl, though, that they have to get together and she has to be besotted with him? It's quite good when you get someone different who seems the same with Bond throughout. Like, they're basically using each other for information to start with, aren't they? They're using each other, like, when they sleep together. That's not particularly romantic. That's just so they can each, I don't know,
pass the time.
She takes something, doesn't she, from him? I can't remember now. I think she does before she leaves. And then she's sort of annoyed to see him in Rio. You know, when they have the, what do you call it, telescope things. The binoculars, and they see each other, and it's like, oh, great. So I don't know. I agree. I think because she's like tonally the same, she comes across as more bland. And I think every Bond girl that Roger Moore has, they have a great chemistry. You believe that they would be together, maybe. You'll see again in the next one, Through Eyes Only, there's a lot more to Melina. I think she's one of the better Bond girls, actually, because she goes on a journey and she doesn't, unlike Tiffany or Anya, she doesn't sort of fall away at the end and become just another Bond girl. Or even Goodnight. Goodnight's the same. She's actually a bit better than you remembered at the start, and then, oh no, I'm weak. But at least Lois Charles' character is the same throughout. And yeah, she's there. She's there for the ride, and she's mid-table for me, Bond girl, I'd say.
Yeah, and sorry, just to pick up on that, she leaves Bond in Venice.
Yeah,
and we haven't seen a Bond girl leave Bond since Diana Rigg did that to George Lazenby.
Yeah.
It's usually Bond just leaving them and carrying on his mission. So I do think there is quite a bit to her.
You guys might be bringing me around a little bit on Holly Goodhead now. I still stand by what I said, though. The delivery is very dry. Yeah. It's very monotone. But I get it. I guess the concept of the characters there. Let's move up. We will be talking about another woman. I'm gonna kind of group her into villains. I guess she's like a villain Bond girl. I don't even know what the terminology would be for the equivalent of that. But we'll talk about the main guy first. Hugo Drax. We've got Michael Lonsdale, French actor. Again, this was part of the whole like English French deal they had going on. Tremendous. And last week I was trying to place a villain. I said that he had like a safe haven with all beautiful people, and he was a bearded villain. And I couldn't remember the name. It's this guy. This was the guy I was thinking of. So memorable. And again, I always say this: if you want to sort of establish a bad guy, always have them either listening to or playing classical music. And that's his opening scene from this film. Instantly sets the stage. Yeah, playing the piano.
Is he?
Well, probably not. Doing a very effective job of miming, as a lot of the actors in Bond have done up until this point. I love the first act of this film, where we sort of, I would actually like more of that. I think there's rumors actually that there was more footage, or I don't know if this was like in an early draft of the script, or if they shot more, where you get more of a sense of this like manor house, essentially, that he's living in, this like huge complex. It's so great to look at. It looks fantastic. Again, I think they shot that in France as well. The name of the place that they filmed it is very French, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'll probably butcher it. He's just great, like immediately, and this is what we're talking about last week, I think, when we had Tom Butler on. He was saying that we like the villain of Stromberg. He's perfectly serviceable for that film, The Spy Who Loved Me, but he said he's not camp enough, he's not memorable enough, and this guy absolutely has it with Drax. Very sort of stoic performance to him again, but his quips, I love that he never gets his hands dirty as well. Like there's that great scene right before the dog part where he's got like a gunman in the trees, and Bond, I love that part where Bond's always a step ahead of him, and he's trying to kill him in other ways. We'll talk, as I keep mentioning, we'll talk about the centrifuge later as well. He's just great, often a fantastic way as well. I'm not going to give my one-liner away at the moment, but that bit where he like sticks him in the airlock, just brilliant. He's easily in my top 3 as a Bond villain. He's got the sort of like stoicism to him. He feels menacing, and it's quite the same delivery that he has to him, but he genuinely feels terrifying. But people with a lot of money who own all that kind of stuff, who have like this crazy plan, he's terrifying, and he looks the part. He's memorable. One of my favorite shots of the villain in this film, it's right before the airlock scene. It's where he's backing down the corridor and all the smoke's around him. Such a great shot. It's probably one of my favorites, but Hugo Drax is right up there for me. Solid Bond villain.
I think it's what we spoke about last week, that there was something missing of Stromberg. Even in the Death Right, when you've got iconic Bond villains, they've always had an iconic exit to go with them. Where they're just getting stuck through a window, shot in the head after sort of torturing him, and all that kind of stuff.
I always go
inflating,
back to
popping. I'm trying to avoid saying some ones from that Chris hasn't seen as well, and last week was pathetic. Falls into salad. Maybe it's funny in its own right. I don't know, but it's this one today. I just think he's got kind of what you mentioned of the Lewis Gilbert thing, right? He took some of the things from the previous film and did it better, maybe ? And certainly villain wise, he's quite terrifying. If I was quite young, I'd be creeped out by him. This weird dude that wants to have a master race, and obviously I'd even jump again into context. It's only 30 years after the Second World War as well, and there's already a new space race, Aryan race, and
apparently in the book the villain is a Nazi, so that's probably where they drew from that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, and I love the whole concept of him, that he's so rich, and he had his like family heirloom mansion moved across as well, built brick by brick, and I was like, if you are that rich, you probably could do that. I'd probably do that to a degree, and I love everything about him. And even when they're shooting, it's what he says, he never gets his hand dirty. He knows what he wants, and he knows how he's going to get it. And don't they say something that anything he doesn't already want, he doesn't own? Yeah, and I think that's what I love about him, that he's built this space race, and even as something as minor as he's playing them against himself. Like he organised the own capture of Moonraker himself. It's all part of his dastardly master plan, and little things like that make a big deal for me. And I think this will sort of allude into the Jaws stuff, but because Jaws was so prevalent in the last film, we didn't get much time with the villain. Whereas this time, obviously, Jaws is in it, but we're not getting too much of him. We're still getting time with the villain to make him out to be this megalomaniac and to see his plan in motion. The scene with the lab, and the next day it's gone, and they're going in with the gas masks, and he's just there. And I think that's incredible. It's ridiculous, and it's incredible. And you want that from a Bond villain. That it's Jeff Bezos, isn't it? It's Elon Musk. Just do it, please. And
Yeah.
I love him. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, his exit, what a way to go. And it's an iconic Bond exit as well, out the airlock. Perfect.
Oh.
He takes what Stromberg was and just ups it to 10. He's an absolute culture vulture in terms of that, like I'm going to move my house from France to America. I'm going to quote Oscar Wilde at any opportunity that I can. I'm going to train my Dobermans so they do it when I click a finger. I'm going to learn piano. I'm not just going to get rid of my lab, but I am going to put it in the most elegant room with paintings all around it. I am going to get the most beautiful men and the most beautiful women on Earth, and I'm going to put them together. And I love when he does his speech at the space station, and Jaws is just like looking like, what are you going on about, mate? Like he's absolutely like, what? And you can tell that this guy would have been practicing this speech for hours beforehand. This was his big moment. He is such a narcissist. He is such a megalomaniac. And Michael Longsdale plays it absolutely superbly. I was reading the Bond Experience book before, and they were slating this performance. They said that when it came out, the public criticised it for its monotone view, and I think that's crazy because I think that he plays it superbly well. He only Hugo Drax would go pheasant shooting of all the villains so far. He's the only one who'd do that, and he would have this gorgeous Rolls Royce that drives up with it, Goldfinger. But you get the gist. He's brilliant. He's one of the best for me. One of the best. And the other thing I'd say about him is that line that he says about wanting to find an amusing death for Bond, that's very knowing. So previously, we've had those things where I think of Helga Brandt and You Only Live Twice, where she could have just killed Bond, but it says it has to be an elaborate death, and it's all a bit contrived. And it's something that Austin Powers takes the mickey out of years later. But actually, what Moonraker does here is it's fully aware and it's in on the joke, and he says, no, I'll just give a villain who absolutely makes sure that I'm not just going to shoot him, I'm going to put him in a pool and have an anaconda constrict him instead. That's the way he's going to do it. I'm not just going to shoot him, I'm going to get him to try and shoot a pheasant and get one of my men to try and shoot him in a tree. And I really appreciate that about him, that he is a very self-aware, in on the joke. And that's one of the best things about Moonraker. It knows what it is, and it just goes full on in on it. And it's class. And he's class.
Or get incinerated by a rocket before it takes off.
Absolutely. That's the point.
It's either some harm comes to him.
I just brought up that quote. I was just searching for that quote. Love it.
Yeah.
Amazing quote. Yeah.
I think for me, you've got probably my three favourite villains would be Scaramanga, then you've got Zorin, and then you've got Sanchez. And I think I think outside that Holy Trinity, he's probably, up there for fourth place, I think. I think he's fantastic. Like you say, I think you just talking about this has made me realise even more. It's scarier that he's so smooth and controlled, but in the end, he's a complete nutter, isn't he? This scheme he's got is truly terrifying. A bit like Nazi Germany, yeah. Think of watching that. Like all these people who are going on in their normal lives are actually Nazis, and they actually believe all this rubbish, don't they? So when the effectiveness of that scene, when Jaws basically realizes he's not a perfect specimen, so that's it for him, and it's just a bit like Hitler. It's like, well, you don't really conform to the type of people you want, but it doesn't matter for him. He would probably go down dying with this because he believes that this is the way. A bit like Stromberg, probably wouldn't mind dying. He believes that the world needs to start again, a new world order. And yeah, Lonsdale's he's brilliant. I don't know whether you've seen Munich. He's not in it much in that, but he's fantastic.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he's underrated film. A good Daniel Craig film. No, I won't go there.
It's good. No, it is a good film.
It is a good film. Yeah, and in fact, the baddie from Quantum of Solace is in it as well.
Yeah. But have you seen Ronin?
I've still not seen it.
So-
Ronan.
so-
No.
Oh, Ronan. Well, whatever. Ronin has Michael Lonsdale, Jonathan Pryce, and Sean Bean in it. Three James Bond villains. Right there.
Well, they're all like nearly the sort of opting for fourth best villains. Are all brilliant, aren't they?
Superb.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic. Like you say, the clicky of the fingers, the outfit, the love for classical. His humour is brilliant, and I think because he's so softly spoken, when he goes into an absolute rage, doesn't he? When Jaws expel them. You obey me. You obey me. It's so good. Yeah, and you're like, bloody hell, this guy's pretty scary, isn't he? So, yeah, I'm a huge Drax fan, and I think it's that getting that mold of uber villain, isn't it? That we haven't. We've only probably had Silver recently, Javier Bardem, who's that level of quality villain who you think is a nutter, even though he's very calm and very composed. And I think those are the best villains, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you've got Drax, like, dude gets not one but three great villain bases as well, doesn't he? Like, obviously he has his chateau. Wow. There's the great sort of like Amazon ruin kind of thing that he's got going on, which is a phenomenal set. It's probably one of my favorite locations in the film. And then obviously you've got the space base at the end, which, speaks for itself. We'll try and speak for that later on. We've got so many scenes to still talk about. This is amazing. Let's talk about Jaws. We have to. The only returning henchman. I'm still trying to think if there's another henchman that's returned.
Shank. Oh, sorry, not returned. Sorry. There's another henchman in the film. I forgot to put on the schedule.
Well, no, we'll talk about him as well, because that's one of my favorite scenes in the film. Let's talk about Jaws though first. I mean, what else more is there to say that we haven't already said on this review? But Richard Kiel, just fantastic. I don't know much of like what he's done outside of Bond, and even the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I'm still feel like a relative newcomer to most of these Bond films, but a lot of people say that is one of the flagship sort of people who always is willing to talk about Bond, is great with the fans, happy for what he did. And he's just having fun with it. And it's what you said earlier, that Roger Moore and him on screen together are just having a whale of a time. And he actually gets to talk in this one at the very end, which was a great scene. And, like going back to last week's one, it's just a complete tonal shift, isn't it? He was very much the physically imposing presence in that film that Bond had to go up against, the silent henchman who was just absolutely unstoppable, completely murderous. And in this one, they've just flipped it 180, and he's sort of like the henchman with a heart of gold, really, by the end of it. And I don't think there's as much as a transition. Yes, he is kind of hunting down Bond, but as I mentioned, from that opening scene where he falls into the circus tent, you kind of know where you're going to stand with Jaws in this one. It's all going to be played for laughs. It's all going to be a bit silly, whether he's in a clown costume, whether he goes over a waterfall, or whatever it happens to be, the cable car thing. There's so much, but I think that I get more from Jaws' character in this film because more is presented for his character. He kind of gets a character arc. And, it's really sweet at the end when he gets the girl at the end. I'm trying to find the Blanche Ravelek, I think her name is Dolly. It's so sweet. And when he pops that champagne at the end, I couldn't remember the end of this film. And I thought, is this, we're going to die. We're going down with the spaceship. Let's just share this drink together. And I genuinely felt empathy and sympathy for Jaws, and I wanted to see him get out of there, and thankfully he does. It's brilliant. And again, like another tonal thing is where you get that swooning romantic music. I don't know who composes it. It's in like every romantic cliche thing out there.
Yeah.
When he first locks eyes with Dolly, you get all the strings come in, and it's...
I think it's Tchaikovsky. It might be the Sleeping Beauty.
Is it Romeo and Juliet or something? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
He's great. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in the film. It for the whole middle of the film just feels like it's set piece after set piece of just Jaws in a different location trying to hunt down Bond in ridiculous ways. And so I mentioned the pacing of the film. You get the great setup, and then it's kind of, we're just going to chill with Roger Moore for a little bit in random situations, and then we're going to go back to sort of and tie back into the main plot at the beginning. Jaws is just great though. There's so much fun in this one.
I think when you look at Spy Who Loved Me, he works so well as he is a villainous henchman. He is terrifying, and he's an actual henchman that's killing people properly. Maybe Odd Job's done it in the past, but not many others before Jaws. And I don't think he'd work if we had that again, because his trope in the last film was that he couldn't die, and he doesn't die, and that's great. You can have him never return, or if you bring him back, we know that his trope is that he can't die, he won't die, so you wouldn't want to see him die. And I think by completely making him comic relief, because you get a bit of it. you get a bit of the intimidation walking down the bite, but as you said, when he gets carried away, that's when it kicks in. This is a very different film. You haven't already clicked from the circus, and I absolutely love him. You know, he randomly has another assistant again for 1 minute, who obviously gets killed when the cable car flies at them. But he's still intimidating. But we know, I think, because we always notice his redemption film, it's easy to look at with obviously like a modern lens and stuff. But I'm trying to imagine, like, if I was like a Bond fan back then on release, and this guy that's been terrifying for years is suddenly a comedy thing, and I'd be like, this is incredibly different to what I thought, but it would work either way. And I think with him in this one, I think he deserved a bit better. I like he had a happy ending. Yes, he's murdered a lot of people that didn't deserve to be murdered. You could argue that a lot of them did. Chris, as you said, he's got a heart of gold, and you know it's like a remontada. He's come back, and we want him to get happy. And I think when you mentioned earlier about the speech with Drax, that face he pulls is incredible because he's starting to wake up like. It's like that. What's the sketch show? You know, when they're wearing the Nazi uniforms. Like, are we the baddies? From I always forget his name.
I think it was Armstrong and Miller. That.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. I think it was.
I can't. It's the one from Peep Show. That's it, Mitchell and Webb. That's it, and that's kind of Jaws in that moment when they're talking about the race, and we know the redemption's coming. But even the fight scenes when he like cracks heads together and he's just like bending metal, it's just amazing seeing him again, and I love him in this. I'm happy he got that character track, and you know they could have done some weird space villain henchman number 2 or anything, but to bring him back, I think just shows that popularity of him. And I think that's something that the Bond films have not necessarily needed, but I kind of said last week that I'd have loved for Batista to come back because we've not had a returning henchman, and I think we're overdue one. And I think because Jaws is that standard of a returning henchman, maybe it's too much of a task for someone to want to bring him back for, because anyone that comes back is just going to get compared to him immediately.
Yeah, Jaws is an iconic character, isn't he? He's absolutely superb, and he really made a lasting impression on the Spy Who Loved Me. I always wonder, like, how much was influenced by the fact that the film Jaws came out in 1975, and all of a sudden you've got a henchman called Jaws who is very affiliated with sharks in The Spy Who Loved Me as well. But I do think, again, that this film is going off the back of Star Wars and how the child audience, what the word I'm trying to say? Sorry, I'm having a bit of a
family, like demographic, or like the younger
how basically their response to it, just the child audience response to the film and how they loved it. They're trying to create a film here in Moonraker that is going to be child friendly, and especially when you said about people writing in for Jaws to be a more friendly character. Excuse me. I really think they've gone down that road, and ultimately, when you look at the box office, it's worked. You know, it's absolutely worked. I don't mind it. I think Jaws was terrifying in parts of The Spy Who Loved Me, especially around the pyramids bit with that music going on. And that's terrifying.
The lighting on his face as well when he's in darkness. Yeah, so good.
But the caveat with that is that in every single scene, even in The Spy Who Loved Me, it pretty much always ends with some goofy moment that he like either drops a brick on himself or he gets electrocuted by his teeth and he falls out of a train or something like that. So it is there, that slapstick element. So it does work too much. I did see somebody compare it to like a Wile E. Coyote kind of moment, and it does feel like that, especially when he's going down the waterfall and he's fallen down. That very much feels like a Wile E. Coyote moment.
You need that goofy yell, don't you, when he goes over the waterfall?
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? I buy it. I haven't got a problem with it. I love that Jaws falls in love. I actually love the twist that he basically is one of the people that helps James escape. I love all that. It's great. Yeah, it gets a pass from me.
He does survive as well. Don't worry. There's like a line, isn't there? Like, a couple of passengers in it or something. So Again, I think the audience would have been a bit worried. But obviously, you couldn't have him back in the next one. I think it's a good way to sort of bow him out. Yeah, I think, spoiler of me, if you could take one Jaws performance, it would be that, because he is genuinely terrifying, particularly in the first half of the film. I mean, that's one of my favourite scenes. Is the most Roger thing ever. Is when Roger goes,
I love that.
Only Roger could do that, and it works so. But and I know they were really good friends, weren't they, Richard Keel and Roger? So they've got the chemistry going on and all that. And by the end of it, you're not taking him too seriously. It's almost like Hugo Drax has had some scouts. Like who's a bad henchman around the world at the moment? Because he says like, "Oh, if you could get him."
Yeah.
And it's like, he's in the transfer window. Let's sign him up. And I can't kill Bond at the moment. I need someone to kill Bond. And my own man Chang's pretty useless. So we need him. But he's terrifying in the carnival scene, as we've said. But other than that, he's there for the ride, and he reflects the tone of the film, which you keep saying is important. There's no obvious tonal shift between him and Chang.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't. Chang's one of the funniest. The haircut for a start is hilarity, isn't it? Oh gosh, yeah. But I love Jaws. Yeah. Let's talk Chang. Yeah,
let's get on to Chang because we've got to rattle through this. Toshiro Sugar as Chang, incredible. Amazing. Good. Just, I mean, he's the guy that almost kills Bond in the centrifuge. That's strike one, and then you get that sweet fight scene, and it's right before it as well, where you've got the it's like the tour guide, and she's going through all these like priceless antiquities and all this stuff, and you're just watching it like all of these are going to get destroyed, aren't they? And destroyed they do. They use they use pretty much everything in that room. I love the clock tower as well. Like, what a cool set piece on it. Just the light. Oh, so good. And then you know what? I'm going to go to my bank of one-liners. We're going to use this one. Play it again, Sam. Straight out the clock face into the band. That job done. Like, I thought he was great. It's like a real martial artist as well. I think he's like really high-ranking martial artist as well, like 7th or something in some kind of championship. Amazing. It feels, I don't even want to say he feels out of place. It's just, we already had Jaws. Chuck another one in there. Let's get Chang in there too. Pick him up.
Yeah.
I think Chang's amazing because he is one of 3 Changs in the James Bond franchise. They're not related yet. But, that's always been something that when you get to Die Another Day, I can't believe it. But when we have Chang in this, I just get amazed that there's point of view shots from inside his helmet. And I think that's what makes it more incredible. And it's the sound effects, and they're really going for it. Considering, I think I've listened to that he is, outside of Bond, I think he didn't do many films because he didn't want to move to America or England. So it was very much, I think he stayed in France and stuff. But he was like I think black belt something, won competitions, all this kind of stuff, and he's just in like quietly stalking them for the first third of the film, and then you get to the big fight, and we know that Roger Moore's going to win, but it's always incredible when we get a Roger Moore fight scene against somebody that can actually fight. And I think that is part of the charm of Roger Moore, that we do get karate chops in this film, but they're in different scenes. But you start to see more of the Roger Moore stuff come into play, and it's just incredible. But what a way to go about, we always speak, you want the over-the-top villain stuff. Out the window, legs sticking out, everything. It's incredible. And considering he's the reason that Karine gets killed as well, I guess you could say he did something, that he just quietly just stayed in the corner of that room for however long. I don't know, but he certainly was loyal. I'll give him that.
What I love about Chang is that he always wears his karate costume.
And so baby.
Yeah.
And I just think
he's ready to go. Like.
Did he graduate from High Fat Karate School? In the Man with the Golden Gun. He passed black belt with Chula in the Man with the Golden Gun. Chula. But what I also love about him is his absolute gorgeous face of disappointment when the centrifuge stops.
Yeah.
And he looks absolutely devastated that Roger's managed to stop it. It's like, oh, poor guy.
It's like he had one job. He was so proud of that job as well, and didn't get it done. Yeah.
I think I should
Absolutely.
have gone round with the controls.
Yeah.
She didn't seem very concerned, did she?
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
then, just- I wonder what happened to that guy, because Chang like taps the guy on the shoulder and says like, "Get out of here," doesn't he? Like, I wonder what happened
Oh,
to
yeah.
that guy. Did that guy get it in the neck? Like, what happened to him? Was he on it as well? Like,
Was he in it?
I can imagine him being like an angry number 2 that he's failed and just took it out on someone, that old school type thing. That'd be incredible. Maybe there's a Chang story to be told in the Apple series Chang, a James Bond discussion. I don't know.
Come on.
But,
I can't believe we're talking about him. I'm so happy.
I know.
I thought he would just be dismissed. Some Chang love. This is brilliant.
I want to talk about one other villain, like really briefly. This is so brief because again, we've got so much to talk about on this. The guy who pops out the coffin.
Oh,
I love it.
yeah.
It's this purple lined coffin,
It's a horror
and it's
film.
just so perfect. He comes up like a corpse in this coffin, and it's like this wheel of like every weapon you can think of, every blade imaginable, just like fans out in this like beatific way in this coffin. He's just chucking throwing knives. He's out of the movie in like less than a minute, but it was amazing.
Yeah,
And he genuinely gets like a proper send off as well, literally. Right out of nowhere, it's like we need an action beat. Get that guy in the coffin with the. I wanted to bring that up because I wrote that in my notes.
It's afterwards. It's when the coffin.
Chase. Yeah.
It's afterwards when it ends up on the water. And does the Italian couple like make a remark as well? It's amazing.
Bondola.
He absolutely smashes his 1 minute of fame, doesn't he? It's like the Gibson of Man with the Golden Gun. That 1 minute of the film that he's in. You're not going to forget that guy. He goes down in a blades of glory, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh dear me.
I think we'll talk about the whole gondola thing in best scenes because another note I've written: the pigeon double take. What the hell was up with that?
John Glenn. John Glenn again.
Right.
Genius.
Yeah.
Let's get onto the Bond theme then for this thing. So we always usually talk about like Barry's score first, and then we'll get onto like the main theme itself. And I guess you can also bring in other sci-fi film scores into this film and westerns. There's a bunch of everything in this film. So apparently originally they wanted Frank Sinatra to do the song. Kate Bush was also offered it, but she turned it down. And they had Johnny Mathis, who was approached, and I think he stayed with it for so long, but he couldn't finish the project. Shirley Bassey was actually brought on really late in the game. I think they were literally weeks away from turning this thing in. So she's always gone on record saying that she doesn't feel as close to the song Moonraker because she wasn't there from the beginning. She didn't sort of have that creative input from the beginning like she did with, Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever. It's also her last Bond theme that she's done. We had that debate, didn't we, about whether she had written one for Quantum of Solace, but I think you did some digging, didn't you, George? And it wasn't written for that film, or it was the dates didn't quite align with it. I'm going to go out on a limb here. This might be quite a controversial opinion. This is my favorite of the 3 Shirley Bassey songs for Bond, Moonraker. And not only that, it's probably one of my favorite Bond songs.
Brilliant.
It's
brilliant.
I think it's outstanding. And even the orchestral version as well. I always hold All the Time in the World, the orchestral version, as probably one of the best love themes in cinema history. If we're just sort of like keeping it to Bond, this is number 2 for me in terms of love themes. It's tremendous. Brilliant. Love it. I would quite happily, and I do, listen to this one way more than I do Diamonds Are Forever, Goldfinger. Not to say that they're bad themes by any stretch of the imagination. They're easily probably in everyone's top 10, but there's just something so sweet and nice and relaxed when as soon as you get the first couple of bars kick in from this song, you feel like you're casting the stars, don't you? You just feel adrift, you feel at ease. All of your worries and problems have gone. And
I'm not alone in the universe. I'm so
and the
happy.
disco version at the end is fucking awesome as well. Love the disco remix. I'll get off my soapbox now.
George, can you bring some sanity to this discussion, please?
Yeah, I don't even know where to. I mean, I upset the other time on the podcast last week by saying I'm not a massive fan of that theme. And listen, it's Shirley Bassey, right? But it's definitely the third of her 3. And I'm just, I like the song. It's better than a lot of Bond songs, but this isn't Goldfinger. You're not going to see Alan Partridge singing this inside of a dual carriageway.
Oh, for iconic Bond song, absolutely. Yeah, you go with your Goldfinger.
I just think it's everything you want. It's getting you G'd up for the film, and you've just had this incredible opening sequence, and it's a great song still. But if you'd have had I don't think you can elongate. Oh yeah, you could elongate Moonraker like Goldfinger.
Just do the
You could
same
easily-
tune. Just replace
Yeah,
Goldfinger
do the
with
exact same tune. It'd probably be right up there.
Moonraker.
Exactly. I literally had to think of it in my head then, and it's got John Barry, and I enjoy the theme. It is a classic one, but I don't think it's like mid-table for me. Like it's like half. I don't know. I don't dislike it, but I don't massively enjoy that much. But I understand why a lot of people do love it, because Shirley Bassey is the definitive voice of the Bond theme, right? I think the only person that's come close to it personally is Adele, who's done one of my favorite Bond themes as well. And it's but they don't sound. They're up there, but I mean, like that kind of voice. The voice was, yeah. I was going to say, but no, I enjoy the theme. It's a good opening. I wouldn't say it gets you in the mood, but looking back on the film, it's very listenable by itself. But I've got no background in music, so my take on music outside of films is completely irrelevant to everything.
Right. The musical composition is outstanding. Especially compared to the more recent stuff, which is incredibly sparse production, especially in No Time to Die, and there's very minimal stuff in it. It's great to hear the strings going on and all the rest of it with that. I absolutely adore that. The chord progression, I think I talked about this on one of the songbook episodes. Some of the little key changes and stuff that John Barry does in it are sensational. It's beautiful, and it works really nicely in the score. The lyrics are verbal guff, if I'm being honest.
Not as bad as Man with a Golden Gun. I think that's still the worst in terms of lyrics, and always will be.
At least that made sense, sort of.
Yeah.
But Tom, if you want to explain what the Moonraker goes and all the rest of it, you go for it, mate.
No, I'm not going to say a bad word about this song, John. Even though, no, I'm so interested that somebody else loves it like me. This is incredible.
There's a divide going on here, isn't there?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
There's a black line right down the middle of the screen.
Yeah. You see all these lists of, because it wasn't a hit or anything, and like you say, I think she recorded it last minute, so they didn't do a video for it. It wasn't really properly on top of the pops or anything like that. She hardly ever does it live. Because of that, she felt it was a bit thrust upon her rather than her own song.
Yeah,
it's just been completely forgotten in the Bond canon. But just the music and the chords, the do. I think honestly, I mean, I'm obsessed with John Barry. I'm really interested in music like that. John's even more so. But we'll go on to the score in itself. But when you've got the composer doing the song and you can weave that in to the score, then that's what we need. We need a return to that for me. Yeah. I do agree, George, with you that it's a bit of a come down, isn't it? You've just had that incredible free fall sort of parachute not opening and the round, what do you call it, the top of the circus and all that, and then it's just where are you? Like nobody does it better. It is a bit more buoyant, isn't it? It's a bit more up there and positive. This is just a proper ballad, and it's just people don't seem to like them anymore. I know we've had the Adeles and those sort of thing, but they're a little bit more brassy. They're a little bit more golfing. This is just a full on, and the disco version at the end it's just perfectly done because it goes from the score and the John will talk about
beat kicks in.
Yeah. The chords are musically outstanding in this because it's major to minor key all the time. It's just so well written by John Barry. Yeah, the lyrics are. But I'm not a lyrics man. I couldn't care less about that. John's more bothered about that.
And we talked about the score last week, and I mentioned that if you were at all odds wondering which decade this Bond film was from, you hear the disco back. It's like, oh, we're in the 70s. Like, there's no question. Yeah. It's still, even in 79, we're still very much in, disco land with that whole thing. Let's talk about the Barry score then. So usually when I do my notes, I literally just write the one-liners down, but I wrote a very comprehensive list of notes for this film, so that says all it needs to for Moonraker, in my opinion. And one of those is "soundtrack is awesome!" exclamation mark.
Absolutely.
And there's 3 key bits of music that one of which we've already talked about was the dog chase music, which just felt very different and kind of haunting and really stuck out to me. There's the one that plays, I think it plays when all the spaceships are converging, but it comes into its own when he's trying to shoot down the virus. It builds, and the tension in that scene is fantastic. Love the music in that scene. I will be going back to that one. And we get a return of probably my favorite orchestral Bond song, and it's a theme that I would love to see come back, but tonally I don't think it ever will. 007 theme, not the main theme from Russia with Love. When you've got the speedboat chase in this, and that came on, I had the biggest grin. It's this adventurous tone. It almost feels like it should be from like Magnificent Seven or something. You get that kind of rousing sense, that adventurous tone to it. Love it. I always get a kick out of it every single time it crops up, and I don't know how many more scores Barry did after this point. So I'm just going to savor that theme every time it kicks in. Love it. Amazing score. I think it's easily one of his best.
Yes.
I'm in a really fascinating void of this where the Bond soundtracks, this is like blasphemy, because I haven't said this up till now. I love them, but because it's a definitive sound of Bond, right? And I think that's why last week stuck out, was that because it wasn't Barry, but it was taking that new era and whatnot. Whereas with this one, I think, not that I struggle with it, because I absolutely don't. This is one where it came in, feels like this is a soundtrack. This isn't just James Bond. This is other things going on. And I think that's where it came in. I was like, when we spoke about the dog scene earlier, when you get the ending, it seems to work as a Bond film and a Bond theme all combined, whereas normally you get a Bond theme that's looped as a soundtrack. And I think sort of going ahead, I mean, obviously as we get nearer and nearer modern day and whatnot, of course, the soundtracks kick in more and more, especially when we get David Arnold coming into them all as well. But I love this. I wouldn't say I don't want to say unmemorable songs, because it's not, but there's no definitive triumphant moment that's not the Bond theme, and there's nothing wrong with that, because the Bond theme is exactly that is your triumph there. But being able to change the dynamic of a scene just based on the sound is something I think this franchise has lacked in, and this delivered on it and more, and absolutely fair play. It's still not in sync smacking a trencher to death like Dr. No, but we're starting to move on.
Yeah, it's a wonderful soundtrack. I was really shocked last time I listened to it at actually how many times there isn't a soundtrack playing in this, especially towards the beginning. And but I think that only enhances it when we get to space, because when we get Flight into Space, the John Barry cue there, that is up there for possibly his greatest piece of music ever. It's I can't think. Someone on our podcast said that what John Barry can do is he can put music to a theme. So he could put music to the sound of water. Well, he certainly puts the sound of space with his soundtrack there. When you see Moonraker flying through, when you see the man going into the space station and he's floating around before he gets to his gravity button, that man floating in space, the music complements it perfectly. It really brings the grandeur of space with the music that's being brought. Yes, it's influenced by stuff like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yes, it's influenced by other sci-fi things around that time, but yet it brings a James Bond feel to it. It feels Bondian. It's perfect for this film, and I adore it. It's brilliant.
I think it can't be understated. Without this soundtrack for the space bits, they might not have worked, because you've got that ethereal feel, the mysterious feel of space. You know, this is a James Bond film. It's meant to be a silly space scene, but no, that just keeps it pretty mysterious. When like you say, when they're going into space, the audience watching it must have been a bit, what on earth is going on here? And the music's carrying you there, quite literally. I think it's not a copy of Star Wars at all. It's completely different.
No,
It's got
not
quite a
at
more
all.
old-fashioned orchestral score, isn't it? But this is 2001, of course, is all previous classical music, really, isn't it? This is a proper original soundtrack, and so you go from, like you say, a 007. It's a slowed down theme on the water, which is lovely, and that, of course, is an old composition of his. But the actual instrumental of the title theme is beautiful when it's used as a love theme. I think it's amazing. Perhaps the love story doesn't really go anywhere in terms of him and Holly, but the music does, certainly. The chasing Corin's unbelievable, and then the other one, which doesn't really seem to get mentioned, the music when those women are luring Bond.
Yes,
in the pyramid.
Oh,
absolutely beautiful. And I recommend the soundtrack to anyone. It's I think from now on he's just a joke. Honestly, he is possibly, other than the initial people who started the franchise, he is the one of the most important people in it. And I think that probably elevates it above The Spy Who Loved Me just for that, just for the score alone.
Yeah, it's serene. Oh, go on, sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to recommend from Octopussy to The Living Daylights. You have got 3 10 out of 10 John Barry scores.
Barry, honestly. It's
honestly, you're in for a treat. It's unbelievable.
Do we know which the last one that Barry did out of all the
Living Daylights?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But no, it's just serene, isn't it? It just really helps those space sequences, the influence from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Speaking of that, I don't know if we've got loads to say on this. I just wanted to mention it. Loads of references to other soundtracks and space stuff. You've got the Magnificent Seven theme, as I mentioned, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, door panel. And 2001: A Space Odyssey itself, the trumpet that's played when the car rolls up, it's the like the main fanfare at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So there might be more. Obviously, the obvious Star Wars, correlation there between the two, which is why this film got made. I don't know if we've got loads to say on that. I just wanted to throw that in because that's part of the music. Oh boy, favorite scenes. I think because this is going to be our longest one. It's pushing 2 hours already, so I know there's way more scenes that we could talk about. I mean, if we're happy to go on, we can list them all. But if we want to pick one of our favorite scenes, if we just pick one, if we want to talk about more, depending on time, we absolutely can do. Oh god, I'm trying to think. I'm going to throw in there. This might not, other than the space stuff at the end, because someone's probably going to mention that. I'm going to chuck the snake fight in there because it's laughably terrible. It feels very B-movie-esque, and I love that shit. You get the real snake in probably 2 shots, and then it's just Roger Moore rolling around in a pool with a fake rubber snake. It's amazing. One of the best one-liners. I am going to save that for the one-liner section, actually. But I'm just going to chuck that in there. It's probably not my favorite scene in the film, but it's one that always gets a good laugh out of me.
It's the build up to the fight that it's when you've got of all the Bonds you want surrounded by this sort of future Aryan race, like the best looking people on the planet. It's Roger Moore. He's going in there thinking like he's just hit the jackpot when obviously reality is very different. And the snake. I mean, listen, obviously, Chris, my fear of sharks. It's nice to get a Bond film about sharks, but when I was younger, I was scared of anacondas for a short time. I just accepted that I won't ever commit one time, right? But it's ridiculous. When it's you're dragging him under, and it's when he's grappling its face, and it looks like the sort of thing you'd get from a safari park or a zoo, at home or something. It's so funny, and I'm not saying it's bad because you're not obviously going to have a real snake in there with him for obvious reasons, but it's just amazing by itself. One thing I really wanted to mention, if anyone else wants to pick up the snake scene, is the scene I love, and I always have. It's the cable cut. I don't know why. There's something about it. I think I read that real life, one of the stunt actors almost dies. They almost slipped off, and there's a documentary. I think it's actually come out today. It's on that weird BritBox. It's about I think it's called Hardman or something. It's been done about all these famous British stuntmen, and I think it has one of the stunt actors from that scene. It's going to be released in cinemas end of the year, which is what I'm going to wait for. But the Bond films, we've said it so many times, the stunts are right up there. We all know that. I think, not sound snobby, if you're a stuntman, I'd imagine the pinnacle of doing stunts is on a Bond film, because that's going to be the most insane of all of them, and it's got the history of that. And I just love the concept of a cable car fight. We've not had that yet. We've to drive side by side, the jump over, the ridiculous of it, biting the cables. It is just
made of licorice apparently
incredible.
in that scene. I did still read in. Yeah.
I love it, and I think that's what it's the scenes like that make that Roger Mooreism, right?
Yeah.
That him trying to fight Jaws on this tiny cable car, knowing full well it's neither of them, and I think that just adds to how great that scene really is.
If I have to pick one, I think the one person we haven't mentioned in this film, who is to me actually after Roger Moore, the next superstar of this film is Ken Adam. And his production design is unbelievable, and Derek Meddings actually for his visual effects. And what I'm going to go for my absolute favorite scene is the when he gets in the Brazilian base, when Roger gets in the Brazilian base, and it's just before like he goes into the Anaconda. The bit there's a bridge, isn't there? There's a little bridge that he goes, and it's quite blatantly a direct reference to You Only Live Twice, to the set design in that. And throughout that, as I was watching it this time round, and you got to the shuttle bit, there's all these nice little references throughout that are like referencing Gilbert's previous film. Where all the way through you're thinking, is James Bond actually going to go to space in You Only Live Twice? And it's only until he stepped on the shuttle at the last minute that he gets pulled back by Blofeld. And I think that throughout that bit where you see this glorious Moonraker and you see all this set design around, the direction is knowingly bringing you back to You Only Live Twice and going, all those little hints where, are you going to go to space? Are you going to go to space? We are actually going to go to space now. And when you see James and you see Holly Goodhead get in that shuttle in Moonraker 6, is it 6 or 5? Sorry, 6, isn't it? 6, the
6.
final one. And you see the vastness of the shuttle and you see the set around it. And then you see it go off and go into space. And just when you get into space, Flight into Space comes on.
Ugh.
And this shuttle that is, at that time, so massive in this area, all of a sudden just pales into insignificance compared to the grandeur of space. And then you see, just skipping a bit, I know I'm cheating here, but I've got to just keep going on about this, the space station and how it reveals bit by bit, line up, the ball comes up and then the bit and the music's going on until the end. That great reveal. I look at that and that would be my top 10 moments of the whole James Bond franchise. Because it is just, it makes my heart sore. This is where, like, I know we say, oh, it's copied this and it's copied that. No. It's taken inspiration from something. And it's done it in the James Bond way. And it's done it with the greatest production designer the world's ever seen. And it's done it with the greatest composer who has ever lived on the earth. And it's done it with the greatest cinema character that has ever existed. And it's done it with one of the greatest actors to play that cinema character. And you're just like, I am in cinematic heaven.
Dear me, John. Don't know what to say, really. But
you've got to follow that up now. Good luck.
Well, just think. I always think it's funny. The visuals of the space laser fight. I mean, obviously,
solid.
It's incredible, isn't it? And the sound design. I mean, Ian Fleming's children. I'm not sure his legacy. What they were thinking about.
Thinking about this.
Cold War Spy. Like, what on earth has this become? No, but we love it. But and then of course you've got the anti-gravity, and they're all floating around, which is incredible. So that again, to John Barry's music, which makes it work. You mentioned George, the cable car fight. John Barry's music for that is unbelievable. And it's just like I've said it before. You get off and on action scenes now. It's just it's just the same thing, but his is like brass and no drums or anything. It's so much better. But yeah, for me, other than the ones we've mentioned, the hunting bit is the most Roger Moore thing I've ever seen in my life. I think it's possibly my favourite Roger Moore scene in the whole his whole period as Bond, because you've got like you say, you've got this amazing setting on this chateau. You've got the feathered cap. You've got the shooting, and Bond's good at shooting, and he spotted him. The audience, it's all done in Roger Moore's face, the whole scene. The audience doesn't sort of see him definitely clock it, and then you miss Mr. Bond. Did I? It's just, and then the guy falls out, and he just cockily hands him back the rifle. Well, Jax could shoot you now. He doesn't think and then such good sports, and he just wheels off, and you just see him wheel off in that buggy, and he just like.
It reminds me of is it Goldfinger where he says like, "Do you shoot Mr. Bond?" and he's like, "No." He's bang. He doesn't even look at the target.
Thunderball.
Thunderball. That's it. It reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah,
that's the Connery thing, isn't it? Like, I don't think Connery could play the sophisticated hunting birds. He's going to get the shotgun loaded and just get to work. Whereas Roger Moore's going to play it up, and that's why I love the pair of them. They're so different from each other, and like each one works for the scenes. Like, I don't think Roger Moore could have done the clay pigeon no look shoot. Oh, look at that! But he can play the gentleman, out hunting, and it's not necessarily a sign of respect from Drax, but it's very much that he's got me here. I can't really do anything. Because again, he wants to kill him in a fun way. Although I don't, he wants these amusing deaths. I'm going to say this. It's not really criticism. It's really stupid, but getting a man in a tree to shoot him isn't probably the most amusing. Like, if that give him like Snake Pit, 100%, times rockets, 100%. But like, I was like, is there any creative way you could have done some hunting with Roger Moore that I don't know, like set some animals on him? I don't know, but I never really got that. Like, I wouldn't. Maybe it's just his sense of humor.
I think I'm assuming at that stage, Bond is there as a spy investigating someone who's got a clean record, so he can't just kill him, and Drax can't just kill this guy posing there. So I'm assuming it's like, what way can we kill him and say, oh, it was a hunting accident that went wrong? It doesn't need this film doesn't need defending. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter.
I've got to throw some extra bits in there as well.
Yes,
so I think we mentioned Derek Meddins as well was nominated for Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Well deservedly. This film looks incredible at the end. Outstanding. I think the way they had to do it was obviously you had all the wire work going on as well, but I think they had to sort of like superimpose different takes onto like composite an image essentially. And I think some of the shots that you see at the end are like composited over 40 times or something like that. Like they had to keep rewinding the footage, adding something else in there. And it looks amazing. We always say this as well, and it is visual effects, but CGI, it just doesn't hold up. Like, age is always going to age CGI. You can have very good CGI, you can have outstanding CGI. Even films 20 years ago now still look great in some respects, but if you can get it in camera, and that's what the Bond films do so well up until this point. And I was actually looking at the sets as well. We mentioned Ken Adam. They apparently at the time they were the largest ever constructed in France. More than 222,000 man hours to construct everything.
Gosh.
Which is just, I mean, and it holds up on screen. If I'm going to chuck any other scenes out there, I knew we'd have to pick more than just the 4. There are so many in this, and I'd never forgive myself if we this is probably going to be our one and done Moonraker review on this channel if these scenes aren't mentioned. The inflatable gondola, we had to mention that. I don't. People are probably like blowing up the comment section right now, like, why haven't they talked about the gondola? That was one of the main scenes that I remembered. Like, I mentioned that I've watched this loads. I was like, is this the one with the inflatable gondola? It is. Okay, it's the one with the inflatable. And he's just cruising through Venice, and it's brilliant. And I've kind of already touched it on already, but the bit where the targeting at the end when he's got to shoot the 3 viruses, probably one of my favorite bits. I think, like the music and just the genuine tension in that. And, he's got 3 shots and he misses the first one. And he switches to manual and misses the second. It's like, this is all or nothing. And you're kind of there, kind of like Star Wars, I guess, with is the Death Star going to be destroyed? But it does feel different. You mentioned like it feels inspired by, like, everyone kept saying like, oh, this is the Star Wars one. And it kind of is, but the villain isn't like a guy in a gas. It's not like a Darth Vader. No. There's no sort of real stormtroopers so much. It feels very much its own thing, and it made the whole space set in its own. But it's probably one of my favorite finales actually so far that we've had to a Bond film, in all honesty, and so far in this retrospective at least. I have heard though, and I think you guys have touched on it already, because I haven't seen Die Another Day yet. Again, that's another one. I haven't seen the 2 Daltons. I haven't seen the last couple of more ones, and I haven't seen any of the Brosnan ones yet. So But I've heard that even that film takes elements from the book Moonraker. I know there's a giant space laser in that one, so I don't know if that's in the book Moonraker, but I'm looking forward to it. But again, I don't know if you guys want to. Oh, the centrifuge! My God, we didn't even talk about that.
The centrifuge.
Let's talk about that and have that. There's probably way more scenes than that, but we've got to cap it somewhere.
The entry. There's the final with Q, and when he's floating. It's just brilliant.
I love all the. I mean, Q's great in every film, right? But certainly in this one, he's got. We always talk about the one-liners, but he has got the best one-liner. I won't say it yet. We'll get to that. But also the whole Mexican bandit that splits in half a machine gun. We're reaching the stage of the Q inventions where they are so ridiculous. They're incredible, and they're starting to really kick in. This is Q. Don't take him too seriously. He's very good at what he does, and we're going to enter the bonkers era now. Rather than cool gadgets, it's what is insane. And he always makes a joke about them after. I think, was it the last film? There's that tray that flies across and shatters someone's head. And his it's something about taking it to dinner with him one time. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
That's just look at the scenes of Q, and it's just perfect to see what's happening. I'm glad he gets more screen time. And I love the fact that Desmond Llewellyn is incredible. Whoever Bond is on screen, he's perfect with all of them.
Yeah, he's class, isn't he? He's brilliant. And he obviously has the face melting laser as well.
Love that. Oh, so great.
What a quality sound effect that is as well.
You must be able to buy one of those guns. In terms of merch and stuff, they had to have released one of those guns to tie in with this, right?
Probably on the James Bond store, they'll probably do one and just add another 2 zeros on it. No.
I think they were re-released as Stormtrooper guns, weren't they, after the Empire Strikes Back?
I'd only buy one if it had a working laser. Otherwise, what's the point? Maybe with the extra price tag, maybe they would have a working laser. Maybe Disney are working on it. Who knows? They're working on a real lightsaber, apparently. I mean, if we've talked about all the scenes, I think we need to get on to, it's my favorite segment. I say this every single time. The weekly Bond one-liner of the week. And oh boy, there are so many from this film. I'm going to try and restrain myself to not pick them all because I want you guys to chip in as well if you've got any that are good. I've got to go to the one where he falls. Bond kind of falls. I think it's right after the cable car scene. He kind of breaks his ass. And she says, "Have you broken anything?" He says, "Only my tailor's heart." That one. I had the snake one. I discovered he had a crush on me. Fantastic. That's top tier. What else did I have? I had Take a Giant Step for Mankind.
Yeah.
I think you're right. That I think Q gets it in this one. I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. And that was the mic drop. So that is my one-liner of the week. I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Fantastic. Loved it.
Class. Absolutely class.
I don't think you can get a better one than that. We kind of joke that when you get to the more era, every film, every line is potential to be on here, and I think it really comes into his own. I think one of my favorite ones. It's not one of the best, but it just always makes me laugh when it's not that funny. Is the "Hang on, James," and he just says back to the thought has occurred to me.
Yeah.
And it's just it's such a stupid thing to point out, but again, people do it in films, and you want that kind of Roger Moore quip back at them, and it's endless with him. It's almost, and even I said, Q's got one-liners. Hugo Drax to a point has one-liners as well. I just love everything about all of them in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a woman for me is the number one. You can't beat that. I just love her. But the reason why I love that is Roger's face just as much as how he says it. It's not meant to be funny, but I love how Hugo Drax says, "Can I tempt you for a cucumber sandwich?" It's brilliant. One of the, something about one of the good things of the British culture, afternoon tea and all that. It's just, I love all that. But yeah, if I talk about the most deliberate funny line, it has to be, I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Yeah. And I'd also love to have seen a deleted scene of Freddie Gray playing bridge with Hugo Drax at some point as well. That would have been great.
Yeah, we've mentioned a lot of them. Ones the Drax one, I can't quite remember it, but when they come in the gas mask, that's so funny. And he says, "Forgive me if I find the British sense of humour a little peculiar." That's class. Yeah, the ultimate one's the hunting one for me. The Miss Mr. Bond. Did I? That's class. Well, you mentioned Q as well in the scene in the middle of the desert, wherever it is. Like balls Q, bolus. It's so good. It's just brilliant.
God,
the other
sorry.
one, right at the beginning, I've remembered as well. What does she say? The woman who he's snogging on the plane.
Oh, hang on. I've got it on
my
my
ears will pop or something.
Yeah, any higher, Mr. Bond, and my ears will pop.
Oh no, I had Welcome to California, Mr. Bond. I like it already.
Yeah,
he's like checking her out or something. It's just
basic.
So you can just quote the whole script, can't you? In
How
all
do you
honesty,
kill
with
4
this
hours
thing.
in Rio? Yeah.
Wow, final thoughts on this thing. Oh my god, how do you summarize 2 hours 15 of what we've talked about on this review so far?
We've gone longer than the film. We've officially gone longer than the film.
We've done it. By God, we've done it.
Sorry, guys.
No. I think there's a good reason why this is the longest one that we've talked about. I think there's loads to love with this one for good reasons. So, you know, if someone watched this, if someone's like really into their dramatic sort of like played straight Bond films, if they get to this one and say it's too wacky for me, the space stuff, the over the top stuff, you know, I could kind of understand if that's not their jam with Bond. But for me, we've had ridiculous bits in all the other Bond films. It's what we said at the beginning. It does feel like it is kind of weird, like, oh, okay, Bond's in space, but it feels almost like a natural progression to that point. And
yeah,
he's a secret agent. Just send him on all these ridiculous missions. You know, he's not fighting aliens, not yet. Anyway, they haven't got that desperate with the Bond films just yet. But it's got ingredients of everything, really. It's got a fantastic Bond villain. It's a great other side to the character of Jaws, like that Beauty and the Beast story, which is just really charming. It's just a charming film, really. And I think that, you know, we've talked about the younger demographic with this film. Now, granted, I didn't watch this one as a kid, so I can't vouch for that. But there's evidence out there that people have connected with this one, and even still, you know, you mentioned that, I don't know if it was one of your mates or something, wasn't it, showing their kids the films, and you know, it's their favorite one, so it stands the test of time. It's just fun. I think it's one that you can just throw on and just enjoy, you know, with there's a certain history to The Spy Who Loved Me, and, you know, the high regard that it's held up in. And I think as an archetypal Bond film by the director, that's probably still the best. But if you want one that's just pure entertainment, and that's what this film is, it's just entertaining beginning to end. Each like individual segment, and the space stuff at the end is great. It looks fantastic. It might be a bit out there for Bond, but that's all the good Bond films are, right? You want the ones that are a bit more ridiculous, and this one has it in spades. So yeah, this just always good to come back to, and I'll probably watch this film a good many more times as well in the future, no doubt.
Yeah, Moonraker. I don't really have the words for it. I'm still thinking about Fast and Furious in truth, but it's one of those Bond films, right? That if you're showing somebody all of the Bond films, and maybe you got a friend that's like, I don't want to watch all 24. Show me like 6 or 7. This is probably going to scrape in, right? You can't only show I'm not saying not the good ones, but you can't only show them the here's Goldfinger, here's Goldeneye, here's this. It's like you need to see this. Why? Because it is ridiculous and incredible at the same time. He's in space. Like, you can't echo that point going any further. And I think contextually it's important with what we spoke about, but the film itself, it's one of the perfect Roger Moore films, isn't it? He's played him 7 times, and I think this is probably in a lot of people's top 2. Not necessarily the film, but maybe performance-wise. And you're in it for the Roger Moore, and you've got the incredible villain to go with it, a henchman to go with that. So many other ridiculous moments that all build up into one incredible experience. I'm not going to lie, I really struggled watching it the other day, but this conversation tonight has just made me enjoy the film a lot more than I had any right to enjoy. I did message Chris. I had dozed off. I did doze off the other day, but honestly, it's remarkable. That's probably a polite way to put the film into context, isn't it? And also there is no Bond film like this. Even when you get to your Dying of the Days and your views of kills, the extreme ones, it's not like Moonraker. Some of them can tail off together. This just stands by itself in its own category of what is a James Bond film, and this goes up right there. So obviously, if you've got to the end of a 2 hour 20-minute discussion on Moonraker, I don't need to recommend you the film. You've clearly stated it because you love it too. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. To me, it's the most self-aware of all the Bond films. It knows what it is, and it's in on the joke. and it doesn't take itself too seriously. And I appreciate about that, because I think, especially in a time now where we're in a depressing part of the world at times at the moment, it's not easy. And I think the last thing that we need is to go to the cinema for more serious kind of depressing nature. What we want is escapism, and there is nothing more escaping than Roger Moore going to space. I mean, it doesn't get any more escapism than that. I can only recommend this film for what it is. I really love that as I look on Twitter, it's getting a bit of a renaissance. I think people are really starting to reappreciate it. And I do think that some of that is the element is because of the time that we live in, and people are wanting to have escapism films. But I can only recommend this. Roger's on top form. It's a great villain. It's a gorgeous score. Wonderful set pieces. There's so much to like about it. And actually, when my son turns 4 next week, and I've kind of like talked to my wife and said, oh, can we start pushing him to watch James? This is the first one that he will be watching. Nice. Definitely. Yeah.
If it helps, I was 3 when I saw The World Is Not Enough, so that's where that started in '99. So if you need some advice to push that agenda further, I think 3 years old is a good age to get them into franchises.
You are such a lucky man. I mean, to grow up 3-year-old and watch The World Is Not Enough, you're a legend. That's all I'll say.
I was going to link in The World Is Not Enough with this, actually, because it's one of those where when you say, guys, review this with us, I'm like, I don't really know. I've no idea what to expect, whether you'd like it or not. I didn't. And it's like, the more you talk about it, the more you think about it, the more it's brilliant. And we did that with The World Is Not Enough, didn't we, John? I know you loved it already, but I think me, Rob, and Matthew were like, oh, it's just another Bond film. And the more you talk about it, the more you realise, hang on, there's this, there's that, and hang on, it's actually a great film. Why we shouldn't have to sort of compare them to the other ones always so much. There's so much variety in the James Bond series, and I love the variety. So we like the more serious ones, like Living Daylights, for instance, Doctor No, From Us We love those for what they are. But then I love these ones as well. And in a series that's got we're on to the 25th now, you can't have the same thing every episode, can you? You've got to have a bit of variety. Like we've said, it plays to Roger's strengths. At the time, it was the biggest Bond ever in terms of the box office. And I think when I was growing up, it was one of the best loved in terms of, Spy Love Me was as well. I think the kids on the playground, they absolutely love these two. And I think it had a little dip maybe at the start of the Craig era because it was so against everything that sort of tone stands for. But like John said, I've seen a lot of love for it recently, and I'm so pleased because I think, it's like, just stop sort of acting like everything has to be so serious in a great technical film. I mean, there are technical bits, like we said, which are brilliant. But like, if you honestly watch this film and say to me, I didn't enjoy it, then there's no hope for you, is there? You've got to enjoy this film. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, and I think, you see the impact of this on other spy films. The first Kingsman film feels very much at home with this film, with the whole Moonraker stuff at the end. And I do think we are going to see a resurgence with everything that's gone on in the world that we mentioned. I think people are going to want more of that fun, dare I say wacky, but just escapism. It's what you go to the films for. It's what you want to see at one of these films like. Yeah. So that will do it for our review. This has been a review of epic proportions, and it's been absolutely incredible. We've talked about so many things for this film, but even at almost 2.5 hours, it feels like there's still so much we've left out. So we want to pass it over to you guys. This is pre-recorded. Hopefully you're still watching it by this point. Hopefully you've been commenting along. Let us know what you think of Moonraker. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure talking Moonraker with you tonight. Absolute whale of a time tonight. So thank you for jumping on. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm going to hand over to you guys now where people can find some more of your stuff and where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Absolutely loved it. We love talking Bond, so that's what we do on our podcast, Really 007. We started it basically in the lockdown because, I don't know, I just thought, I'm a bit depressed. I've nothing to do with my time. Let's talk about Bond with my mates, and I can't believe where it's gone from there. We've had, Bond. We've had Bond actors on it. We've got other interviews that we've recorded which haven't been released yet, so I can't say much, but they're very, very exciting. Mm-hmm. But the best thing has just been the Bond community. You know, meeting sort of people who genuinely love Bond. Like you say, we said before, often with other film series, particularly Marvel and Star Wars, you get so much infighting, don't you? And everyone's so protective about it that you daren't say anything about this, you daren't say anything about that. But I think our podcast, what we do is just you can. I don't mind if you hate something or love something, as long as you've said it. Everyone's view is the same. So that's what we've tried to do, and make it lighthearted as well. But yeah, you can find us on iTunes and Spotify. If you just look up Really 007 podcast, Really 007 pod, you'll find it. We do have a YouTube channel for the visual interviews, and yeah, we'll be. I mean, we suppose we have an episode out most weeks, every other week, but because they're so long,
this is a short episode for us.
Yeah, we've just done 10 hours on Diamonds Are Forever. And that's, I mean, if that doesn't put you off our podcast, I don't know what will, to be honest.
I saw part 1, and then I saw a part 2, and I saw a part 3. I was like, oh my god, how many parts is
the film yet? And we were an hour and a half.
We love going on tangents. So, like, we were talking the other day, and one episode of Diamonds Are Forever included references to Keeping Up Appearances, The Office, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Roy Chubby Brow. So, if you like anything to do with pop culture mixed into your James Bond, we're certainly the podcast for you, definitely.
Absolutely. It's just really chill. It's just awesome. It's informative as well, but it does feel like what we've done tonight, just sort of like listening to people, chilling with their mates, talking about a movie. It's really good fun. So give them a follow. As we mentioned, we've got all the links in the description down below, so please do go check those guys out. And next week, we're into the 80s, the greatest decade known to man. So we're in 1981. We have For Your Eyes Only, The Promised For Your Eyes Only, which we're actually getting next time. That's going to be Tuesday, 6th of July, once again at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. And I barely remember anything about that film. So that's going to be like rediscovering that film again for the first time. And that'll be the last one that I have already seen. And then for a good chunk until the Craig ones into uncharted territory. So once again, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Absolutely loved tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it at home too. So until the next one, we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.